So I'll be speaking loud. Yeah, I've been puffing loud. We be getting high. Just let a man breathe and just hush so my mind could just cease, so my mind don't erupt. At times I feel I can't get enough, but I sip a double cup, then I spin a couple bucks. Sending out some love to my blood, to my girl, to my buds, to the homie up above.
Well, hello out there, great lands of lands. Welcome to the MCU's Bleeding Edge. We are live Friday night, December 15th, to discuss the 1985 film Back to the Future. That's right, we're finally doing Back to the Future, people. Not only have we talked about doing this review for, months now, we're finally getting around to it, and we're doing it for you guys. So, this came out July 3rd, 1985. It was an instant success. This actually, some interesting little info for you guys. When I was researching this, I did not realize that. But when Robert Zemeckis and Gail, I forget what his last name, Gordon, I think, were Bob Gordon, and Bob Gale, and they were shopping this around back in the early 1980s. They actually started working on the script back in 1980 itself, but it took them 40 times to get this accepted by Universal when it finally did. It took it 40 times to get accepted because they had to kept doing script rewrites and stuff like that, because at the time, if you recall, the big hits at that time, from like the late 70s through the early 80s were such films like Animal House, Porky's, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. These were all very high R-rated films that people loved, and so they didn't feel that this film was raunchy enough, because this movie only has a PG rating, so which is pretty uncommon for that time. I mean, especially when PG-13 was becoming more common. So I think that was kind of an interesting little thing to tidbit, that it took 40 times to get this greenlit by Universal by like 1984. So anyways, this was directed, of course, by Robert Zemeckis, written by him and Bob Gale, him and Bob Gale have actually been huge, writers together. They've written a whole bunch of films together. They've worked on a whole bunch of films together, and they're kind of like a duo, when it comes to filmmaking. And if you look at a lot of, Robert Zemeckis's filmography, you'll notice that Bob Gale is in a lot of his, either as producer or as writer or anything like that. And they actually worked on all three of these Back to the Future films together. So, of course, this stars the amazing Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, Thomas F. Wilson, Crispin Glover, to name really kind of the main folks that were in this film. And, I think this cast was really good and, really done well. What's similar to Time Cop and Angela Bassett?
The duo, baby. What's up?
Oh, okay.
The team, the power of the team, baby. There's no, I mean, you're not like the fucking, the Time Cop and Angela Bassett teamed up.
There you go, folks. The dynamic duo of Time Cop and Angela Bassett. There you go. The new duo team in the year 2077. Anyways, so back to the movie, and not about Time Cop and Angela Bassett, So anyways, like I said, really great cast, really well done cast, and I think all of them really proved to be really amazing at what they did for this film. And, for 1985, this movie was considered a huge success. And surprisingly, this movie was only made for $19 million back in 1985. That's pretty low budget, especially for such big stars. But if you think about it, Crispin Glover, Thomas F. Wilson, these were all kind of like one of their first films they did. Michael J. Fox was already well known because he was on Family Ties. Leah Thompson had been in a few films prior to this. And Christopher Lloyd, of course, he was in Clue earlier that year or later that year, I believe. He was in Taxi. He was really well known. So he was probably the highest budget of them all. So basically, this film, if you're not familiar with what the premise is, it's about going back to the future, because we end up back in 1955 in this film. and we have to get back to the year 1985 when this film came out, which is supposed to be the present year at the time. So my first question for the panel, for you guys, what do you think? How successful do you think this film would have been if they had kept Eric Stoltz in as the role of Marty McFly when they originally had him, and they had actually filmed 14 weeks of film with him? Which the reason why they ended up having him originally at first is because at the time, because Michael J. Fox was doing Family Ties, the production company didn't want to let him go because they were already losing Meredith Baxter to her pregnancy at the time. So they needed to keep him on to keep the ratings going for that show because he was one of the biggest stars of the show. So they actually didn't even show him the script at the time when they first sent it to him in like early '84. And so they ended up picking Eric Stoltz after that out of all the different people they decided to pick. So what do you think the movie would have been as successful with Stoltz in the role, or do you think they did a better choice by bringing back their first choice, who was Michael J. Fox? Let's start with you, JJ.
Michael J. Fox. I heard everything you said. I can't even imagine that franchise without Michael J. Fox. I mean, like I said, I'm just picturing him now back in the, in '85. He is Marty McFly. And I honestly think if they would have had the other guy casted, it wouldn't have did as well. Like I said, Michael J. Fox, he really played that role to the T. It's like, to me, he lived it, he breathed it. And when he got on that screen, it was like, wow. Honestly, I fell more in love with the movie because of him. Honestly, he, like I said, when I saw him in Back to the Future, that's where I became a diehard fan of him.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, and that's one thing that they actually, when Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale were looking for who they wanted to play, Michael J. Fox was their first choice because how he acted on Family Ties is exactly how they wanted Marty McFly to be. So his quirks, his kind of like little mannerisms he did in the show is one of the reasons why they actually had picked him first. So very, very good observation there, because I can't foresee anybody else playing Marty McFly too. So when I first found out that Eric Stoltz had actually filmed some scenes for this film and was casted because Michael J. Fox wasn't able to at the time, I was actually like, whoa. And so when they started making fun of that in future films in the recent last couple of years, especially in The Flash, oh my God, I thought it was absolutely hilarious. I was like, oh God, if the only Eric Stoltz was Marty McFly, would have been totally interesting, because he was actually coming off of, if you think about it, he had Mask come out that same year, where he played based on true story of that young gentleman that had elephantitis, and he was considered huge for that. So I feel that Michael J. Fox was definitely a better choice too, because I feel he was more comedic than Eric Stoltz was, and I don't think we would have gotten all that great quirkiness as if they had stuck with Eric Stoltz. All right, Andres, your thoughts. What do you think? Do you think Michael J. Fox was the better choice, or what would you think if Eric Stoltz had been Marty?
Excuse me, as our good friend here, This Is Life podcast, say Michael J. Fox is Back to the Future. He is Marty McFly. There's no way to just make me convinced that Eric Stoltz is Marty McFly. That I'm sorry, that's not that could never work, honestly. As you brought up Cyber, and pretty much we're gonna go over, Michael J. Fox was the first choice from the filmmakers. If you've seen the behind the scenes docs and all that, anniversary stuff, they always bring up that story that, Michael J. Fox was the first choice. It was a little difficult to get him into this project, and of course, while Eric Stoltz was, in the part until they fire him and get Michael J. Fox finally, and is for the better. I seen the stuff, and what I heard is the scenes that Eric Stoltz did is he was trying to make it too serious, so he was not really right for the role. And look, Eric Stoltz, great actor, he's amazing. I mean, come on, The Mask. He's in Pulp Fiction. Recognize the John Travolta, drug dealer he goes to. He's there. The Fly 2, the 1989 sequel to the David Cronenberg film. Yeah, Eric Stoltz is a great actor, but he wasn't right for the role. I'm very happy that they got Michael J. Fox, because Michael J. Fox is just awesome. He really brings the energy and personality that McFly is to us for these next 3 films. Yeah, there's no way you could change that, and I'm very happy that happened, because just Michael J. Fox has what the comedic timing right compared to Eric Stoltz, where he was a bit more like Glovin, Christmas Glovin, in terms of he was very meta kind of actor, and he just took it too far and too serious, and that was not what the project was about. So I'm very happy about it.
Excellent, sir. Jeff, same question, sir.
Could you, sorry, Shark, so yeah, could you give me the skinny again and whatnot so I make sure that I answer it correctly?
I suppose so.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Anyways, the question simply was, who do you think was a better choice, Michael J. Fox or Eric Stoltz?
Oh, definitely Eric Stoltz, man. I mean, you kidding me? The film would have really killed it with Stoltz, without question. No, I'm just kidding, man. Come on now. I mean, honestly, I've seen enough Stoltz back in the day and whatnot, everything, right? That I imagine if we watched some of that footage, right, that it was not at all as electric and funny and like vibrant and organic, right, at all as Michael J. Fox's portrayal of the character. I just can't see Stoltz bringing that energy to the role, right? That youthful exuberance, right, along with the acting chops. You know what I'm saying? Like, Michael J. Fox, that even when he was younger, had all of it, man. He had all of it. He had the whole bag, basically, right? Good looks, good actor, right? Good speaker, right? Funny, right? Also could do serious shit too. Very well rounded from jump. Someone told me, so an insider told me maybe he might be rocking some baby dick energy too. You never know. Who knows? Could have something to do with it. But either way, without question, probably the film would have done about as well in equal to those times or those days as the Marvels probably with Stoltz, right, as the character compared to Fox. Maybe not as that bad, but like similar. If you all get the gist of what I'm saying, it would not have been what it was. I don't think. That's all I'm saying. Who knows though, right? It's an interesting, thing to think about. You know what I mean? What would have happened, right?
True. Thank you. All right. So, like I was saying before, this movie was made for $19 million back in 1985. They started principal photography in 1984, ended up pushing it to January of 1985 when Michael J. Fox came back to take over and reshoot certain scenes. And they ended up finishing filming around May of 1985. And originally the release was supposed to be Christmas time of 1985, and it actually got pushed up to July of 1985 because they wanted to, because of the success of Michael J. Fox, they wanted to push this in summer so they could get more runtime at it. And it ended up making $381 million in 1985. So that's pretty impressive on a $19 million budget. So, I mean, it made buco bucks for them in 1985. So I think that's great that, this was such a successful, film. And especially with all the crap it went through to get made, it shows that it was so well done. Another interesting thing I found out is that because they had a rush getting it done in a final cut, which was the cut we see in the an hour and 56-minute long for 1985's release in July, is there was quite a few little CGI things that they did not get to because of the constraint on editing it and getting it done so that they could release it in July. So when it was first released in 1985 in theaters, there were some things that were very noticeable, they said, but because of how good everything else looked, people really didn't notice very much unless they were very nitpicky. So think that was, that's a testament to how successful this film was, and it still made $381 million. So I think that's fantastic. All right, so the movie starts off pretty basic. We get that opening sequence that shows Doc Brown's house, shows all his little gadgets and stuff like that going on, and basically we end up having Marty show up at the Doc's place, and goes in, hooks himself up to this giant amplifier, which is hilarious. I mean, as soon as I saw that amplifier, I was kind of cracking up, going, "Who has that big of an amplifier?" I'm like, "What? That doesn't exist." And he's an aspiring musician, so he wants to kind of rock out before he goes to school because he's in high school still. And he hooks up and goes to turn it on and goes to play the guitar, and it blows. And you see him go flying backwards, which is absolutely hilarious. And he's kind of like, "Whoa!" And that was heavy. And so then all of a sudden the phone starts ringing. He grabs it, and it's Doc on the other end of the line, basically asking him to grab a video camera and meet him at Twin Pine Malls at 1 a.m. so that he can videotape what Doc's been working on all this time. And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "Cool." And he's like, all of a sudden all his clocks start going off, and you're like, "Oh, what the hell is going on here?" And he's like, "My experiment worked." He's like, "They're all exactly blah blah, time behind." And he's like, "Are you telling me it's 8:45 or something like that?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Damn it, I'm late." And so then we have that great kind of like montage of him skateboarding to the high school, in which we get that great beginning sequence where he holds onto the Jeep, which pulls him a little bit. And what's funny is, you know who that is as the driver? That's Steven Spielberg as the driver in that Jeep that looks back for a quick cameo in Back to the Future.
I didn't know that.
Yep, that's him. And so he makes it to the school, and Jennifer's there to meet him, and he's like, "Oh, we got to go this way, or Strickland will get you." And that'll be another tardy for you, and blah blah blah. So they try to sneak in, but Strickland ends up finding them, and basically Strickland gives Marty the kind of like stern talking to, like, "You're not going to amount to anything because you keep being tardy and this crap and stuff like that." And and so he's like, basically he goes, he's like, "Okay, can I go to class now?" Basically after Strickland does his thing, and he's like, "I see that you are trying out for the high school dance band." And he's like, you're not going to amount to anything, McFly, just like your old man." And so, like, I like how they always keep referencing George to Marty, like he's like exactly the same. And what you see, like, George, you're kind of like, I see some similarities, but I don't see Marty being that bad as George was. But then we go to the audition, and he gets up there with his band, and who none other is one of the council members to pick the band for the prom dance. None other than Huey Lewis himself, which is absolutely hilarious. I love that that's him, but he's like got the slick back hair and stuff like that. And they start playing, and they're like doing like a rock, a little anthem kind of thing. Very slow though. It's not like anything heavy metal or anything, And he's like, "Yeah, you guys were just too darn loud," coming from Huey Lewis, and I'm just cracking up the whole time watching that, going, "Yeah, Huey Lewis, you are noisy, sir, in your music." And so I think that's funny they have him play that character. But once that that audition's over, Marty, you can see the expression on his face. He's like so upset. And then we go to him and Jennifer going to the Times Square in Hill Valley, and basically they're like talking about how he doesn't feel like he's going to be able to make it. He wants to be a rock star, but he doesn't. He can't take rejection. She keeps telling him that he needs to send in his mixtape that he made of his band, and he's like, he can't take rejection. And then he comes to the conclusion there, going, now I'm sounding like my old man, because that's what George keeps saying all the time. I can't take that kind of a rejection, which later on in the film, that kind of becomes poignant at a certain point. And so they're walking and they're talking, that stuff, and they basically say that, and then he's like checking out other chicks, and she like moves his face away from them, and basically they're talking a little bit more, and then that older lady looking to get money to save the clock tower pops up, He's like, save the clock tower, save the clock tower. And she's like, 50 years ago, that clock, or 30 years ago, that clock stopped ticking because the storm hit it, blah, blah, blah. He's like, and he throws like a dime or something in the kid. He's like, okay. And she gives him a flyer. She's like, take a flyer. And then they get back to about to kiss. And then all of a sudden, Jennifer's father shows up. And he goes, oh, I'll call you later. And she's like, oh, I'll be at my grandmother's. And she comes over, takes the flyer, puts down the phone number, and says, I love you. And she takes off. And then from there, we end up going to Marty's house. And we see him skateboard back to the Lion Estates, which are now looking very dismal compared to in the 1950s because they were just being constructed. But we get back to his house, and he pulls up, and all of a sudden he sees that their car is being towed into their driveway, and it's all smashed up and totally wrecked. And he goes inside, and Biff's in there along with his dad. We get introduced to George and Biff for the first time, and they're like supposed to be in their 50s or whatever, 40s, late 40s, whatever. And basically Biff's basically blaming George for why he crashed his car, and that it's his car's fault that it had a blind spot, and that's why he crashed it. Wasn't from him drinking or anything Biff did, but it was his fault. And they basically, have that conversation, and we find out at that point that George works at the same place as Biff and is like doing his work for him at this point. And that, he's like basically tells him, will you get that report done for me? He's like, yeah, I'll stop. I'll get it done tonight. And, taking on blah, blah, blah day. He's like, not on that day. I sleep in those days. So I'll come the next day or whatever. And so, basically, he ends up going at this point too. During the conversation, he goes into their kitchen and grabs a beer, like he owns the place, which is absolutely hilarious. And Marty's just kind of looking at him like, "What is this doofus doing?" And basically, Biff, leaves eventually. And after Biff leaves, George is like, "I know, son. I know, son." He's like, "The car, Dad. I needed that for this weekend. It was very important to me." And, basically, all I could say, son, is I'm sorry. And it kind of goes to the dining room, and he's sitting down at a, kitchen table there, and he's pouring himself peanut brittle, and he's like, offers some, and he's like, no. And, you understand, Marty. And he, basically kind of gives him like a little bit of talk that really doesn't really mean anything because George kind of doesn't know what he's talking about. So, and then that's when we kind of get that jailbird Joey scene with his sister and his brother there. And we see a very heavily prosthetic Leah Thompson, supposed to look like she's in her, late 40s. And I look at her in this with the prosthetics, and then I look at her now in her 60s, and I'm like, yeah, I don't see any resemblance there for that. That was some pretty not really good take on what they'll look like in the future, but for its time, it still was pretty good prosthetics. And basically she's like, she had made a cake for her brother, and he's like, he's not gonna get out again, kids. Say your prayers for jailbird Joey. And basically they're kind of going around having these conversations. George is like watching the TV. It's the honeymooners are on, and basically Lorraine talks about their first dance, and that's where they kiss for the first time. And that basically he was hit by her father's car. That's why he took her to the Chapman Under the Sea dance and stuff like that. Kind of reminiscent about it a little bit. And you would 40-year-old verse. What's a verse?
Version, baby.
Version? Oh, Jesus.
It's short for verge, babe. I don't get me wrong. I don't think it's hip or anything or whatnot. Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't think Andreas and JJ would know better than me. I don't think other people use it like online. I just do. I abbreviate it.
Okay. Anyways, folks, back to the actual thing we're talking about. And so basically we kind of reminisce about that. And, basically Marty goes to sleep. And all of a sudden we see him in bed. And he gets woken up by a phone call. And he answers the phone. He's like, hello. And it's Doc on the other side. And he's like, Marty, you didn't fall asleep, did you? And he's like, no, no, no. And he's like eating a candy or something like that. He's like, yeah. He's like, make sure you grab this too when you come to the thing. He's like, okay, I'm on my way, you know. And basically, we end up getting to Twin Pines Mall, and he's riding skateboards, got the video camera, got what else he needed to get for Doc, and all of a sudden we see a like a van thing that says Dr. Emmett Brown on it, and that's when all of a sudden the door opens up and we first see the time machine, aka the DeLorean. So we'll stop there before we go any further. So lots of great information there, lots of great scenes. So what are your guys' take on that beginning sequence? What did you enjoy about it? What did you like about it? What did you notice about it that maybe somebody else didn't notice? What your overall thoughts are on that beginning sequence up to when we're introduced to the DeLorean for the first time as it comes out of Doc Brown's van. All right, we'll start with Pop Culture Guy.
Yes, so happy. Anyway, I always enjoyed the first part of this. Before we get to the time machine car, it's just so awesome. Like back in the day, expositions were never this forced, and this really is a textbook 101 of how to like give your audience credit, not hold their hands, like give the information like so organically, which was awesome to see. Like it was small details that I never noticed. Like I like it's just small detail if you don't notice it, like the newspaper clip where it tells you that Doc Brown's house got burned, and like he had to sell off half of that land to Burger King of all places, which amused me. And then I think after you see, like we pen down into like the TV, another cool detail if you don't catch it is the news reporter talking about the stolen with plutonium, and then of course when Marty is in the house or garage, whatever you want to call it, his skate like this hits the plutonium box, and that's like hilarious, but also like, oh my god, this is how you pirate the time machine. Such great like details, like visual expedition is awesome and tells you the information right away, like how the Doc gets the stuff. Bless you. Okay, and of course, Doc Brown his whole life, and other details like of course the what is it, the jail bell, like Joe jail bell thing, that's hilarious because it gets paid off so funny when we get back to when we go back to 1955. He sees the baby Joe, and it's just hilarious. Yeah, stuff like that. The cameo, Steven Spielberg. I knew it was Steven Spielberg. I just didn't know it was him. So nice job, Cyber. Now I need to look back at that. That's so funny. The Steven Spielberg cameo. But yeah. I was always laugh when we see Harry Lewis cameo. That's always hilarious. When he gets up, when he just looks at his judges, like, okay, yeah, this is you're not working, and gets up, gets the home like the microphone, and it's like, you're too loud. You're just too loud, and it's just so funny. And that freaking lady, cockblock, Marty and his girlfriend's name. I have my notes here. Jennifer, right? Help me out, guys. Here.
Yeah, Jennifer.
Yeah, Jennifer.
Her character,
right?
yeah, Jennifer.
Yeah, his girlfriend in the the 85, and it's like, what's wrong with you, lady? You see the kids just having a passion time. It's like, what's wrong with you? So I just find that funny, but it's also funny, but crucial. You don't realize the setup of the clock tower, how they're gonna use the lightning to generate the gigawatts for the time machine. So like all that is just so wonderful. But also, this first part is just so important to understand Marty's life, because it's going to be different. Well, actually, it's going to change in the ending, because after what he did, it's so important to see what's going on now in Marty's life. How it's very mundane, his father is very, very push on by, Biff, and his wife is so unhappy, very alcohol, which I forgot she drank vodka, which is funny. And also seeing the town, which is cool because, compared to that and then 255 is just like night and day, very different. And I really like how they set up, the difference and contrast that in the future and the past when we get to 55, which is cool. But overall, great opening. It gives you everything you need to know about your main protagonist. Marty could fly. Doc Brown a little bit. Which we'll get to later. But yeah, everything is very important in this film. It's one of the best openings for a film.
Excellent, thank you, sir. JJ, sir, your thoughts on the beginning of the film leading up to the DeLorean coming out of the back of Doc Brown's van?
All right, so the first thing, I'm glad nobody didn't mention it. So when he leaves Doc's house, the Burger King, and the reason why I mentioned the Burger King is because of the logo. I mean, like I said, you look at how it was then up until now, 2023, and every time I see it, I'm like, dang, that's an old freaking Burger King. And a lot of people that probably watched that movie now weren't even alive to remember it, but luckily we all, were around, around that era to see it. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then, he gets to the high school. First thing he does, hops off the skateboard. And then, like I said, he's trying to run up the stairs. And then Jennifer comes and basically is like, yeah, you can't go this way. Principal's looking for you. Though that opening scene right there was awesome. And I forgot to mention, like, I love that song, Power of Love. I hear that on a regular now. It's on my Spotify playlist for oldies. That song, the timing of it, as soon as he's like, oh shit, I'm late for class, boom, the song comes on. So I think right there is where you really could get a feel of the movie, because I'm pretty sure, some people at the beginning, like, okay, what's going to happen? All these clocks and all this tick-tocking. But once he, leaves Doc's house and he jumps on and they play the music, now, like I say, you're like, okay, now I think we're going to get somewhere with this movie, and then that's one of my favorite scenes too, when he's rocking out. I think his band, when they were the Pinheads. There you go. I think the Pinheads. So when he starts playing, I'm sitting there bopping my head, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, stop. And I'm like, what do you mean stop? I mean, because looking at everybody else, I was like, okay, for sure he's going to get a chance to play at the dance. And when he wasn't, I was disappointed because I'm like, oh, come on, man. I mean, like I said, you have this kid, like I said, he, potentially wants to be a rock star, and that's his time to shine in front of his peers. And you're telling him no, so I thought that was also a good, moment. And then obviously we fast forward, we take it into their house. That's an interesting scene. Like I said, mom's a drunk pretty much, she's laid back, and the dad's just like so nonchalant, like to the T, and his laugh, he'll watch something. That laugh killed me, but those, like I said, those moments right there, for me were the best in the beginning.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Very well done. Very well done. And thank you for bringing up the Burger King logo. Yeah, because I don't know if a lot of people notice, a lot of the Burger Kings that I've seen now recently in the last year or so, they're starting to revert to that old symbol again and get rid of that one they had brought into the domain in the early 2000s, late 90s. So we're actually seeing that old Burger King logo. Even the uniforms are starting to go back to that old school look. So I think that's kind of funny they decided to go back to that, because I originally preferred that logo. I thought it looked the best. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That's really fun. And yeah, the Pinheads, that name of his band was absolutely hilarious. All right, Jeff, your thoughts, sir, on the beginning of film from the start to up to when the DeLorean comes out of the Doc Brown's van at Twin Pine Malls.
Well, I mean, Andreas and JJ already kind of like pointed out some of like the meat, right? So like basically, I guess I'll just tackle some of like the logistics, right? I love the 80s feel and sound, like even the background sound of the opening, the whole film, right? But like the opening, right? It's very 80s-ish, even like heavy 80s-ish. Like, remember how you'd have that background, the background sounds, right? In the older movies that were like, like really stood out, right? Throughout the films and whatnot. That really, I mean, the clocks then into that, right? Really fucking like locked me in where I'm like, oh shit, there's that 80s vibe, baby, right? Like, you could really hear wildlife, right? The way that they like mix audio, right? And like, it would compose and like, handle the audio back then. They would accentuate the sounds of birds and shit like that and whatnot, the wind, right? Leaves rustling, right? Regular, sounds you hear outside or urban, areas, wherever, whatnot. They would accentuate those sounds. They do in the film, they do it often. Like whenever, like, a clock strikes or something and whatnot, it's extremely loud, right? It's like very, powerful. That just reminds me of the 80s, man. They don't do that anymore. There is no focus anymore, like on that pure background sound added in almost kind of the film, right? It's sort of been kind of deafened down a little bit. I don't know if y'all would agree with me. Maybe this is just on me. But like, I don't detect in movies I watch nowadays that again, maybe this could have something to do with technology improving or evolving, right? I don't know. But like, or what the people are capable of doing with audio. But I don't hear such distinct focus on making sure that like you hear like, outside stuff going on in the scenes of the films, right? That doesn't have to do with everything having to do with like the meat of the scene, right? The main characters, the actual dialogue, the special effects, right? It seems like they've kind of gone away from like, trying to focus and make sure that they incorporate nowadays the natural noises you would hear in scenes too. Air conditioning, right? Electricity with Doc's machines and shit, whatnot, right? His lab. All that stuff is very alive, audio wise. That's what I noticed was how like, how loud and like how, different they mix the audio compared to how movies are now. It sounds a lot different. Right. The dialogue doesn't sound any different, I don't think, volume wise. It's just more of the other sounds. The soundtrack. I'm not saying it's like a classic or something or whatever, whatnot, but I like the music. It's good, right? From jump, it's good music. And I guess getting a chance to sort of get reintroduced to Michael J. Fox's character in the film and his world, right? The way that we do is cool. It's a good way to kind of be a primer for him in the movie. Kind of establish some context to his character, right? And the people around it, him and whatnot. It kind of identifies a lot of the main characters. And basically, the clock scene was a little bit overwhelming for me, to be honest with you. It was that's pretty much all I got. Is just that like it went a little bit too long for me, and I kind of got to a point where I was like, wait a minute, like seriously, like I'd forgotten that like that shit got as loud as it does. It's actually really kind of like intense.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's see here. So just a little more info for you guys that you might find interesting. Now, the actress that ended up playing Jennifer in this first film, Claudia Wells, wasn't the original first choice for this role. She actually was down the line a few people before she actually got the call. Because Elizabeth Shue actually was was actually called to play the character in this first film at one point, but she had conflict with the Karate Kid movie, so she couldn't. But then originally was Melora Hardin to play Jennifer's role, who you might recognize from the film 17 Again. You might recognize her from Monk as Monk's dead wife. She was originally the one that they wanted to play the character, but she ended up wasn't casted because they didn't like her chemistry with Eric Stoltz, and also they didn't like how she was taller than Michael J. Fox was. And they wanted somebody that was a little more at the same height as Michael J. Fox. So they ended up getting rid of her and hiring the other gal. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But, for Doc Brown's character, which I found interesting, there was a lot of people who were actually did auditions and tests for that character besides Christopher Lloyd that they were looking at, such as Jeff Goldblum, John Lithgow, Dudley Moore, Ron Silver, Robin Williams, John Cleese, Mandy Patinkin, Gene Hackman, and even James Wood was approached for the role. And I'm like, I can't picture anybody else playing Doc Brown except for Christopher Lloyd. And like Christopher Lloyd on point was Doc Brown for me. And I was like thinking to myself, like, wow, if somebody else had played Doc Brown, that would have been completely out there. Like, I just can't foresee it because Lloyd, yeah, totally is the man. And I mean, I remember seeing him in Clue and in Taxi and stuff like that, and just thinking, I loved him. I thought he was a fantastic comedic actor. And so when I first saw him in this film playing Doc Brown, I was like, he's perfection. He was the perfect cast for that character. So I'm glad that he decided to stick around and play all three films, which is really great. But I thought that was some interesting information. All the people that actually were looked at to play these different characters, I thought was quite interesting. All right, so back to the film. So where we left off, like I said, the DeLorean has just come out of Doc Brown's van, and we see all the steam coming out, and we see it slide down the ramp into the ground, and then we get to see the sick-ass DeLorean, which was a very expensive and a very new futuristic car back in the early 80s that was created by John DeLorean. And they actually had looked at several different cars to use for the time machine, and the best fit ended up being the DeLorean because, one, they got a really good deal on them because DeLorean at that time, when they started filming, was starting to go under. So a lot of people were getting rid of them. A lot of the company itself was like dismantling. So they got some really good deals on these. So they were able to, get them cheap. So that's why they ended up going with DeLorean. And I think personally, I can't see under the car playing the time machine in this film either. And all three of them, can't see, because I think DeLorean was perfect because it was very long, like width-wise, and having those cool doors that came up like an airplane hatch or on a helicopter just worked really well too. So I thought it made the time machine look more futuristic and more fun. So, like I said, we get the DeLorean. It pops up for the very first time. We get to see it all in its style. We see its huge intakes on the back and all this kind of stuff, and just how cool it looks. And that's when Doc pops out of the thing when Marty is riding his skateboard up to it. And of course he's like, Marty, and and so he greets them and they start talking. It's like, so this is what you've been working on? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I created a time machine. And he's like, you got to check this out. So basically we end up getting the scene with Einstein, the dog. And he puts Einstein in the thing and he has Marty start filming. And he's showing like that their watches are in sync and that he's going to transport Einstein to a moment in the future and then have him come back. And we basically get that scene where the DeLorean disappears and comes back a second later. And Einstein is fine. Nothing's wrong with him. And, basically showing that time travel is possible. But, basically after the time machine does its first run, Marty asks, like, what does a run on? He's like, keep rolling. He's like, no, this thing it's not just electrical, but it needs something with a little more kick. He's like, plutonium. And Marty's kind of like, you can't just walk into any store and get plutonium, Doc, you know? And he's like, yeah, I know. He's like, I stole it off a bunch of nationalists, some Libyans. And he's like, and they wanted me to make them a bomb. He's like, basically telling him, he's like, so instead I sent them a bomb casing with, pinball parts in it. And I just like, you're just thinking to yourself, wow, this is a recipe for disaster when he starts telling you this story. And so, basically he's like, tells him, he's like, I'm going to be the first person to go into the future. I'm going to go 30 years in the future, see what it's like. And, be this person that created this thing. He's like, and talks a little bit, shows the flux capacitor saying, I remember when I was, when I first thought of this, I was putting up a light fixture, and next thing I know, I slipped and fell, hit my head on the porcelain tub. Next thing I knew, I woke, I had a revelation. I had a picture of this in my head, and the flux capacitor, which makes this time work. And basically kind of goes a little over, we get that sequence where he shows a little bit like how to use it, and he like goes through a few different dates that you could go back to, the birth of Christ, the 1776, the Declaration of Independence, and all this kind of stuff. And it was like, and basically he ends up starting to get together, to get done, to go. And so before he does that, he has to put plutonium in it, so he can, take a trip, because he realized, he's like, I need extra plutonium too, So basically we see a scene where he, both Marty and him are in these hazmat suits, and to put the plutonium into the flux capacitor chamber. We see them do that. He's like, we're all good. And he grabs his bag. He's like, I don't know if they have synthetic or cotton underwear in the future, so I got to make sure I bring my own because I'm allergic to everything. And you see him put the bag into the trunk of the DeLorean, and he's getting ready to get this first test, to see have the first human time travel. And so all of a sudden, when they're standing there, and all of a sudden Einstein starts barking, and he's like, "What's up, Einie?" And all of a sudden you see this Volkswagen bus coming up. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, a Volkswagen bus could not keep up with a DeLorean. I don't care how souped up that Volkswagen bus is. Those things are a piece of crap. And so when they had them show up in that, I was cracking up, thinking to myself, wow. But all of a sudden, this Volkswagen bus shows up, and it's the Libyans. And they have, they're there to, get their bond, basically, or their money back. And so basically they pull up with a machine gun, they start shooting. And so both Doc and Marty try to get away, and Doc goes and gets a pistol he has, and he ends up getting out of the way and getting to shoot them, and he tries to shoot it and it doesn't work. They stop and see him, and they shoot him, and all Marty can do is go, "No, Doc!" And so then Marty jumps into the DeLorean and starts to speed around the Twin Pine Malls parking lot. And they're basically, going like, watching the scene, you're kind of like, it doesn't look like they're going faster than like 20 miles an hour, maybe 30 max. And the gauge on the DeLorean saying they're going like 50 or 60, which that did not look like 50 or 60. But of course, he has them follow him around. He's trying to get out of the way so that he can, evade them, and they like shooting at him and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden in the mirror, he's like seeing as he's driving, they pull out a rocket launcher. And he's like, oh, it's like, let's see if you bastards do 90. And he like puts it in gear and then starts going fast. And all of a sudden you see the gauge, it's slowly rising up to 88 miles an hour. And as he's about to hit that phone booth or the photo booth, it like hits 88, and then he transports to 1955. And all of a sudden he's like in the middle of nowhere. There's no buildings, there's no mall. It's just all pines. And he ends up driving into a barn. And so as he travels to the barn, that wakes up the people that live at the house there that's by the barn. And he, of course, after he crashes, he tries to get out of the car, and he gets out. And he's still wearing the hazmat suit. and he walks out and he tries to go out the door. He's like, sorry about your barn. And then all of a sudden a buckshot gets shot at him. He's like, and he falls backwards. And then the kid is like to dad, like, he's a space alien. He's transformed into human form. And so Marty like sees him about to shoot him again. He closes the door, and then he gets back into the car, and he's like, "You space alien crap," and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, he comes busting again through the barn, crashing through it with the DeLorean, and he basically bolts out of there. And the the guy's still shooting at him with the gun, and he shoots his own mailbox. And if you notice what the mailbox says, it says J.J. Pine, which is the name of the guy that created the mall, Twin Pines Mall. And so he's like making his way. He's like, am I having a dream? Am I having a nightmare here? And he's driving down the road, and all of a sudden he stops and sees a sign that says Lyons Estate coming soon. And he gets out, looks at that sign. He's like, what's like thinking, what's going on? He gets back into the DeLorean. All of a sudden he's looking at the DeLorean and sees that it says 1955, November 5th. And then all of a sudden the dashboard goes blank. It just all of a sudden stops running, and the whole car stops running. And he's like, oh crap. So he ends up taking off the hazmat suit and everything, puts it in the car, stashes it in there, and then stashes the car behind that billboard and starts making his way into Hill Valley. And as he's walking down the road, we notice he sees a couple, and he asks them, for help. Briefly before he, and they're like, they see him still in the hazmat suit for a second before he ends up making his way, and they're like, "Get out of here, Gary!" It's hilarious. And but like I said, as he's making his way, we see a sign that says "To Hill Valley," which it's in like this giant open area. You don't see anything there. There's no buildings or anything like we saw at the beginning of the film. He makes his way into the center of Hill Valley there, and it's all brand spanking new looking. It's all cleaned up. All looks beautiful. And then as he's walking along, you start noticing the different storefronts and stuff like that. And of course, it like showing like the current records, like and stuff like that, which are 1955 and stuff like that. And you're kind of like you're getting transported back to the 1950s, which is really awesome. And so he sees a person throw away a newspaper in a trash can. He picks it up and notices it says November 5th, 1955. And he's kind of like, oh, it's like, no way. And so he ends up seeing the copy shop that he, is still around, I guess, in 1985. And he makes his way over there, goes in there. It's all 1950 style looking. And he looks at it. He's like, what the heck? And he walks over to the guy at the counter, and he's like, do you have a phone? And he's like, yeah, in the back. And he's like, okay. So he goes back to the thing, look in the phone book to see if Doc's alive, because last time he saw him, he got shot. And so he looks in the phone book and he finds him, and he rips the page out of the phone book, and all of a sudden his watch starts going off. So he like tries to hide it. He tries calling Doc, but no answer. So he ends up going back and he's about to ask the guy, do you know where blah, blah, blah street is? It's like, are you going to order something? He's like, yeah, give me a tab. He's like, okay. He's like, I'll have a Pepsi free. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, Pepsi free has not been embedded yet. And so the guy automatically thinks he's saying, give him a Pepsi for free. He's like, if you're going to get Pepsi, you're going to pay for it. He's like, give me something without any sugar. And he gives him black coffee, and he takes 15 cents for him. And he's sitting there about to drink the coffee. And all of a sudden he looks over, and it's his father, George McFly. Because all of a sudden Biff pops up with his friends. It's like, hey, McFly, I'm talking to you, Irish bug. And he all of a sudden he looks over and notices his dad, and he's like, what? And he basically watches the only interaction where Biff, screws with George, telling him he's not supposed to be in here and that it's going to cost him, and, ask him about his homework. Once again, showing that Biff has always like been using George for his own gain. And he's like, same thing. He's like, don't come too early. I sleep in on Sundays. And basically like, don't let me catch you in here again, McFly. And they leave. And George goes back to eating his food, and Marty's just like dumbstruck, just staring at him. And he's like, and all of a sudden George is like, "What?" And he's like, "You're George McFly." He's like, "Yeah, who are you?" He's like, "I'm at first he's like, and all of a sudden that's when Mayor Wilson comes over, who was at this time just a busboy, and he's like, basically you gotta stand up to those boys. You can't keep letting them take control of you and stuff like that. He's like, one of these days I'm gonna amount to something. I'm gonna make myself something. And Marty's like, yeah, you're gonna be mayor. And then Goldie's like, mayor, yeah. And then the shop owner's like, yeah, colored mayor, yeah, right. And so he's like, I'm gonna clean up this town. He's like, yeah, you can start by cleaning up this diner. And he's like, I like the sound of that. Mayor Goldie Whitson. And all of a sudden, Marty looks back to his father, and he's gone. And he looks outside and notices that he's riding a bike. So he starts following him. And as he follows him down to a certain street. He finds the bike, but doesn't see his dad. And he's like, he looks around where his dad is. And all of a sudden, he looks up in a tree and sees his dad, and he's got binoculars. And he looks over at what he's looking at, and he's watching a chick undress. And he's like, you peeping Tom. And then all of a sudden, something happens to make George follow the tree. He falls down, and all of a sudden, that's when Lorraine's father comes driving up. He's about to hit him with a car. Marty intervenes, pushes him out of the way, and he gets hit by the car, and he gets knocked out. So before we go past that, let's talk a little bit about that section of the film. Marty's first introduction to 1955. So from being introduced to Doc Brown, the DeLorean coming out, and all the craziness ensues into the understanding of the time machine, all the way up to when Marty gets knocked out by his grandfather in the car after trying to find his dad. What are your thoughts on that section of the film? What did you like about it? What did you hate about it? What did you find interesting? What would you like to point out? Just kind of your thoughts on that section. Let's start with you, Jeff, this time.
Oh, Lord, me going first?
Yes.
Come on now. You know that, like, when it comes to, like, running the trade and whatnot, I always go last. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm changing things up here, sir.
Right? I like.
So you get to actually say something, sir.
I like to feel like I'm a part of the whole experience, and whatnot, everything, right? So I can feel like I'm a kindred spirit with all the dudes that have participated in the
Well, you'll be the kindred spirit at the beginning of the dudes.
There's nothing like getting like sloppy times like 1,000 seconds, right? With a chick, it's got to be hot, right? I'd imagine. You know what I'm saying? Like, seriously. And she's probably really into having sex too at that point too. She's all about it, right? Like, very submissive. Anyways, folks, one crazy thing that Jeff S. TrueKnowledge has never done is run a train. It is just too fucking weird to me, and like too strange, and fucking like way out, like out there as fuck, and whatnot, everything. And I could never do it. I could not participate in one. I'm sorry. So there you go. It's just kind of fucking intense. Just the idea of watching one seems crazy to me. But then again, hey, you know what? Teach their own. If y'all out there in the Bleeding Edge audience, if you're in the Bleeding Edge audience, there's probably one or two of you right now, right, that enjoy that shit. So there you go. That's Bleeding Edge style. But I like, of course, Doc being introduced in the film, whatnot, everything. You're right about Christopher Lloyd, like he obviously, I mean, I wouldn't be able to accurately say to anybody that like he was the exact choice for the character or something like that, whatnot, because I don't have your filmography knowledge, whatnot, of like the 80s, right? And you know what I'm saying, right? At his what his competition would have been like who else would have potentially been able to fill the role, right? So. And I also don't know what his older work was really before that film. I mean, you probably do. So besides Aliens 2, right? So or Alien.
Who are you talking about?
I'm tripping, man. I'm thinking of a different guy. My bad. I'm thinking of the guy that played Bishop in Aliens.
That's Lance Hendrickson. He's not in this movie.
I fucking know that now, dude. I already feel stupid. Now you gotta embellish it. Come on now.
Of course, it's the bleeding edge. That's
Come
what
on,
we
man.
do on here. We give each other shit.
That's true, sir. You know what? It needs to be shared, right? And I give
Yeah,
you a
we
lot of shit.
we can't just all give it to Time Chop over here.
You're right. You're right. We need to set up some, honestly, guys, I think we should set up some kind of quota over here where we make sure that everybody gets fucking like shit talked to and gets their balls busted to a certain level in the same equal slice. Right? So I'm gonna focus, guys. I promise. I'm gonna try to make sure that any clip I put out, not everything, it's an intro, whatever, it's funny, not everything will be all at my expense. The next couple ones will be all about making me look stupid and bad and everything. I promise. That's gonna be the whole focus. Of course, you all know I love that anyway. That's my favorite shit. So it's not gonna be like a problem for me. But not like later on in the film when a certain character's mother wants to bang him, everything and whatnot, right? Which was almost our thumbnail. But then I thought, you know what? Cyber won't like it. It'll conflict with like the actual like vibe of the movie, like the energy of the movie. Why people would want to watch the review. But I was gonna like start off and go with like a screenshot of them in the bed scene where the mom tries to bang, her son or whatever with that, and like I was gonna add like a subtitle, like a title that said some crazy shit, but whatever. No. Incorporating Doc into the film, and then the dynamic or the duo, as we used earlier, of pairing them together, right? The two characters, with Doc, as basically the foundation of the film, I guess, like as the main characters essentially. If you could say that, if they are considered sort of like the titular main characters. But no, Marty and Doc's rapport and their chemistry on screen and whatnot, everything, and how well they work together, and it fits, right, is a big part of why like the movie's good. Their scenes are great. They really stand out. A lot happens, right? Like they seem to really work well together. They flow well together, right? And as much as I talked up Michael J., you can't like not give props to like Christopher Lloyd, because like he brought his own like whole kind of like his whole like mad scientist. I don't believe that it's easy to play a mad scientist. Probably, I don't think that just any motherfucker out there could just step right in and whatnot and play a mad scientist, right? And like be funny and whatnot, everything, and authentic. There's a lot of actors and actresses that probably would never have that in them to be able to be that kind of character. But he can do it, right? Like he slides right in to those kind of characters. So from that perspective, Cyber, yes, he probably was perfect casting or whatever, right? Like they nailed it with that. I wonder if he made similar money as like John Claude for like Bloodsport. I think he made more probably. That'd be interesting to know. I wish we could actually I wish I could pull up the actual budget and we could just real quick look and see what they actually paid out of that 19 million to the actual actors and actresses. Like how much fucking Michael how much Voss made at his age and whatnot in this film. It's interesting to me. You wonder. Back then, Cyber, Andreas, JJ, it was a different time in cinema. Maybe they didn't. Maybe there wasn't such a different split with like how much is being paid out in these budgets to the actors and actresses versus the rest of the film and production, right? That it could be the same, it could be different. Like who knows? It'd be an interesting conversation. I'd imagine that if anything, probably that now in present day, probably because we have social media and everything and whatnot, like JJ and I talked about earlier in the studio, and when actors and actresses sign up, like in the MCU, and their characters get so big that they make toys out of them, that there's pictures of them and videos of them on every platform. At that point, that there's a brand there. I'd imagine that budgets get more heavily dedicated more towards the actors and actresses a lot of times nowadays than maybe back then, where maybe more money was invested into like actual production, right? The infrastructure, casting, the small stuff. But no, good scenes. Seeing the actual nostalgic, massive, like the arteries, like the heart of the film type stuff, like the actual why I'm having a hard time with the name, the actual car,
DeLorean.
The DeLorean. I'm sorry, jeez, I'm having a brain fart. Seeing the DeLorean is always like awesome. It's just very nostalgic, right? Like the more you get into the film, for me, I feel like the nostalgia builds almost kind of as the film goes, right? At least for me. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, great. The whole film to me is very consistent. There's no boring parts. This part of the film kept it going. It pushed, if anything, it got the momentum going even more.
Yep.
Hey, I'm not coming close to 60-minute man over here yet.
Oh yeah, you are. You are on the cusp of 60-minute man.
I'm clocking myself right now on my contribution.
Sure,
right. My clock is right to the left.
Sure you are.
JJ, we call Andreas the 60-minute man, sir.
Why is that?
Well, it's a parallelization. It's a dual, kind of a term. It refers to his regular contributions to the panel that last as long as up to 100 minutes, 60 minutes long, right? And then on top of that, it also has to do with his hardcore, bedroom skills that he learned from Angela Bassett when she trained him. You know what I'm saying? We're like, he'd be crushing it at 60-minute level, baby.
Well, thank you, sir.
And
to answer your fucking question about how much Michael J. Fox made for this, $250,000.
Oh, okay.
He only made $250,000 for this, and he ended up making $5 million apiece for part 2.
But wait a minute, though. But real quick, though. Okay, $250,000 with a $19 million budget.
Yep.
Quick correlation to nowadays, right? Okay. $250,000 out of $19 million.
Yep.
So basically, then at that point, if the movie was $100 million, he only would have made around less than $3 million.
And you mean by today's standards?
Mathematically, if at $250,000, right? Yeah, in today's times,
if he was to make Back to the Future today,
yeah,
no, I think he would have made what he made on the second and third film in today's standards. You got to quadruple that $250,000 from 1985 because it is substantially.
Yes. When you take into consideration how much
inflation.
Yes, of course. No, I guess my point was more along the lines of if you combined it or tried to reflect it based off of our current dichotomy back then, if you used it, that he would have made, a $100 million film, he would have made, 2.7 something million, right?
I think it'd be more like 5, but
okay, maybe 5.
Yeah,
that's a lot of fucking money back then for an actor to make for a movie, bro. Holy shit.
Yeah.
But $250,000. I'm not sure if that is really a high caliber salary for back then.
No. He took a small amount for that role because he knew who's going to make bank on the other two.
Oh, he actually took a pay cut? No shit.
Yeah. Because he only took what they gave him because he was originally supposed to do it, but because he didn't say anything and they the Family Times people screwed him, he got less than what he could have made because they had already spent so much money on Eric Stoltz and his filming So they lost money by bringing him in because they had to reshoot everything they did with Eric Stoltz. So that $19 million originally was only, I believe it was additional, I think $4 million. So originally it was only $15 million that it cost to make that film, but there was additional $4 million because they had to do the special effects, they had to do the reshooting, and they had to expedite the editing of the film. So ILM was probably majority of that budget at that time.
Well,
because
hey,
of all the things they had to CGI during that time.
maybe to take the edge off of that type that taking that money away, they provided him with his own individual massage parlor assistant for his trailer and shit on set, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah, right. I mean, just equal things out. I mean, hey, this was the '80s, right? That would have been a very tangible possibility.
Yep. Excellent. All right, 60-minute man, your turn. Your thoughts on that portion of the film, sir?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna have to run this, but yeah. So, Doc Brown, great character. One of the best of cinema's history. I mean, I love Christopher Lloyd. He's such a great actor. I mean, people don't notice him as a great actor because of this role. Like, come on, he's a great villain in Star Trek 3, Search of Spock. Awesome play on villain there. I mean, also another great villain in Who Framed Roger Rabbit as the judge. Very creepy villain there. Very awesome. I always adored the relationship between Doc and Marty's relationship. It was felt it's like this proper father and son relationship that I think Marty just doesn't really connect to his real father. Like it's because he actually like speaks like there's one speech he'd say to his father. I think it was from Doc Brown because I think Doc has influenced Marty in a very positive way of like learning how to like be ambitious with his ideas and go after it, where compared to his dad, he's like very, he's afraid of rejection, as we see in this film, particularly in the high school in 1955. So you can see why he's very close to Doc, and especially him getting shot with the terrorists and all that. But yeah, the time machine car is awesome. It's very iconic. We're so good. I don't want to see the private jet.
Andres, I'm very afraid of rejection too, man. You know what I'm saying? That means I don't get laid.
Yes, I think you're thinking something else, but whatever. But yeah, rejection is a very powerful tool, and that's something I noticed with my rewatch about the themes of being rejection and moving forward. Like take your dreams, to the electrical place is something that's very human, relatable in society, and I think it's a good theme for this film. But yeah, so the car is awesome. It's really great. It's very funny. I I always get the little gag when it's like when Doc is gonna do the time thing when Arnie's in the car, and he's like, "You're gonna see this." What did he say? He say his first curse word, which was funny. I forgot he cursed. He say shit, which was just funny. So funny from his word. It was very funny. But yeah, and then when we get into 1955, it's hilarious. The farm people is just like, come on.
Yeah,
Do
they're
you
funny.
know?
They're funny as shit. Yeah.
Yeah, like how you don't know that's the human person? And why did the dad? You should never listen to like a 5-year-old or 6-year-old kid about that. That's an alien. It can shapeshift into a human person. It's like, come on, dudes. You're human people. That's the such thing of aliens in the 50s. If you actually believe Area 51 back then, which is hilarious. But anyway, when he drives in, the car doesn't work, and then he goes into the town, and that's what I mean, like compare and contrast. Like when he gets to the version of his town in 1955, it's so clean. It's very like like from a movie set. Like it's like the heyday, which is really awesome. And like the song "The Sandman" is a really good touch of it. Bringing back the old days was really neat. Him meeting his dad in the diner is so funny. I love the little gag, like they're like smooth their hair, like smoothing their hair like simultaneously is very funny. Biff. I mean, speaking of Biff, I mean Biff is such a great antagonist. Love the actor. What was that?
Yo, I would beat Biff's
Thomas
ass.
F. Wilson.
Bro,
Yeah,
Andres, I would beat Biff's ass in less than a minute, bro. I would stomp the fuck out of him.
Yeah, I mean, he's the worst guy, but
No, but he's a little bitch, bro. It's obvious he's a little bitch. Like seriously, he can't fight.
I mean, what are you talking about? What,
Dude, that bro can't throw fists at all, bro. JJ, am I right or not?
I mean, Biff always had his boys with him. I mean, so he always had that protection. But
you feel me though, right? Like I would have knocked his ass out.
Oh my god!
I mean,
no way.
Biff. See, the thing is, like I said, Biff had all his people around him, but Biff looked like he could probably stand his own on a one.
Bro, I would have fought his people too, bro. I do that too. I would have fucked them up too. I might not have knocked them out, but I'd fight them all. I'm known for that, bro. I have a rep for doing that.
I would have tried to give Biff a one-on-one.
Biff's team can take me out. I would let Biff's team join in too. Why not?
I don't know. I think some of it, Biff was kind of like all like, trying to be like a big bad wolf. But I think overall he could have held his own a little bit. Now his squad, yeah, you could take those dudes. Like they look like they were just like simpletons and stuff. But nah, Biff looked like he was that guy a little bit, but he just ran his mouth too much. That's what it was. That's what made me not like Biff. He always ran his mouth, but like I said, well, I don't want to talk about the end of the movie, but yeah, Biff was an interesting guy. He was an ass, but he was interesting, man,
Yeah. And first off, Biff is also tall. Like he's like taller than me. And there's no way you could like
Andreas, what does height mean, bro? Dude, you know what, bro? Dude, time I fuck with a dude that was like 6'5", bro, and you know what? I jump headbutted him and knocked him out, bro. So what does height mean, bro? What does height mean?
Sir, how tall are you? If you're not
I'm 5'7" and 3/4. That's why I had to jump to headbutt him.
That's not real. You're probably 5'1".
No, I'm 5'1". Fuck you, bro.
I'm just saying. Whoa. Pardon my
You
friend.
watch me behind this. You watch me on the shows behind my desk and my chair and shit, whatnot. Week after week. You think I'm 5'1"?
Jeff's not 5'1", man. Maybe 5'3". Give him 5'3".
Give him 5'3".
What is good? What this is like? This is I have a little. This is I have a baby dick. You assume me I'm 5'1"?
Now you bringing your private part.
I don't listen. I'm going to go back to Cyber. I'm sorry, Cyber, but I do not appreciate you correlating my baby dick status, whatnot, everything, that kind of shit. That's not fair.
Oh my god, this is utter bullshit. This is bullshit.
I find that transphobic.
What? How is transphobic? Anyway, you're full of it, man. Anyway, Biff, horrible person, very tall. No way you could beat him. So fuck that.
I'm telling you, Andreas, you're like Shaw from goddamn Geek All and podcast and shit, whatnot. That when I told him I would beat his fucking ass, his reaction was, "How tall are you? How much do you weigh?" I'm like, brah, are you kidding me? You ain't never been in a fight in your life, kid. Just keep your mouth shut. You know what I'm saying, Andres? When you actually been in a scrap before or whatnot, and you've been scrapped out and scrap dudes, I'm telling you, man. Of course, height and weight makes a difference, but really, when it boils down to it, it's experience. And like heart and skill, you know what I'm saying, and balls. Like honestly, dude, I fought some big dudes, bro. You know what I'm saying? And like I'm not saying I crushed them, right? But I didn't lose either. Okay, so like I'm telling you right now, bro, it's all about the heart, right? And if you can throw it out or not. I'm telling you, bro. That's a misconception.
It's called white penis vision. Phobic transphobia here, people.
Well, no,
that's what it all is.
It's also called. There's boxing and professional boxing. Then there's fighting the street. All right.
Honestly, Jeff, I think Mr. Andres was just joking with you. He didn't care really what your size or weight
I
is.
know.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, you don't sound like you that way, sir. You sound
Yeah.
like you went full
Well,
boxing legend there, sir.
just
So-
because I'm just because I'm very confident about myself
that's
doesn't mean that I'm confident about my height.
yeah, but there is certain points where we got to take it back a notch, my good friend.
Okay, sir.
Take it back a notch a little, okay?
Hey, you know what? Maybe my height is my biggest insecurity.
It shouldn't be.
Yeah,
Shouldn't
yeah,
be.
should
If you're
Should be.
confident with yourself, nothing should bother you. That shouldn't matter. You
No,
know?
it doesn't.
Yeah. So
It doesn't. I've never lied about my fucking height on a dating site, bro. It's always 5'7".
So, anyways,
Anyways,
thank you,
yeah.
sir.
Yeah, whatever. Explain me about the Pepsi thing, because that was something you brought up, Cyber. That was something I was always confused when I was growing up.
I heard it's a new kind of soda.
Fuck you, Jeff. I'm not talking to you. Cyber, talk, please.
Jeff, be quiet for a second.
Yeah.
So, Pepsi Free was a new product in the early 80s that was
Okay.
one of their first sugar-free Pepsi products, like a diet Pepsi. And see, Pepsi at the
Oh.
time was fairly new to the consumer. Like it's been around for years, but
Mhm.
at that time they only had one type of Pepsi. So back in the 80s, they decided to do a Pepsi Free, which was basically used with NutraSweet. And so when he goes back into 1955, he ends up asking for a sugar-free Pepsi, but they didn't have that in 1955. Hence why the guy thought he was asking for a Pepsi, and he said, you got to pay for it.
Yeah.
That was made me laugh.
I've never tried that one before. I never had that kind.
Oh, really?
Were you much into diet drinks when you were 3?
No, I was not. Honestly, to tell you the truth, I was trying to figure out whether or not my penis was a toy or a part of my body. Right? You know,
Kind of like White Vision's penis.
it was a big thing. I was really trying to figure out in my head. You know what I'm saying? You know, at 3, right? Like, you know, is this on me or like do I take it off? Right? You know,
Okay.
is it like
anyways.
is it like a character like blacks?
Well, only a couple years later, Pepsi Free ended up becoming obsolete. So you probably it came as fast as it disappeared. So you know, at least your other body parts stayed on your body, so that's a good thing. You don't want it to come off, sir. So
What was the black can, real quick, that came out all years ago? What was the all black can? Was that the sugar free Pepsi?
No, it was zero. Like zero sugar? It was...
Remember the one that was straight jet black can?
Well, they still have the zero around, and that's an
Yeah.
all black can.
That's the zero. Okay, that's the
Yeah.
zero calorie. Okay,
Yeah, it's still there. Yeah.
I
But then
tried that. Yeah, that's pretty dull.
And then there was the Zero Max that came out about 10 years ago. That was more caffeine but zero sugar too. So I mean, they've had a lot of iterations since then. So, but anyways, that's what Pepsi Free is, Andres. All right, JJ. Please, sir, your thoughts on that section of the film. And sorry it took so long to get to you.
No. I was just sitting back enjoying the rest of the convo. No. Once they get into 1955, it's interesting. Get a chance to feel what it was possibly like in that time. I'm gonna zigzag through different parts of it. One part that stuck through me, and I'm glad they did it, was when, you know, Michael J. Fox was in I guess the not even cafe, the little restaurant. And well, no, it's not a restaurant. It has that Johnny Rockets vibe. So
A diner. It's a diner.
There we go. Diner. So when fast forward when Goldie comes in and he mentions about Mayor, and then I guess that's his boss says the same thing. I'm glad they did that because, again, that's how it was back in 1955. I mean, honestly, like African Americans to even possibly have that type of position, they thought it was a joke. So that really stuck to me, you know, it really did. And like I said, I'm so glad they put that in, you know, because really, you know, he was lucky to even have that type of job, you know, because like I said, I never was a big history buff, but I know around that time they were starting to integrate with, you know, with the white culture and everything like that. And then after that, obviously, you know, fast forward, you know, once he gets hit by his, I guess no, that's okay. Not Marty. I'm thinking George. Fast forward, I'm just fast forwarding through some parts. When George gets hit by his future father-in-law. Yeah, his future father-in-law. You know, that's interesting, you know, because it's like you're watching history unfold. Marty is watching the history unfold in his eyes. He's watching his father get hit by his grandfather, if I'm not mistaken, you know. So those parts are interesting. And then to think that his mom started having the hots for him, it's like, okay, I'm gonna say this, but then it's gonna kind of make sense. You can understand why, because he's the offspring of George McFly. So it's like she's looking at him as if he's a much, 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 much younger George McFly. You know, so I thought, like I said, I thought those parts like really stuck out with me the most. And I think that, well, and then going back to the diner part, I want to say, was that the scene where Marty got into it with Biff and he chased him around?
Not yet.
Oh,
Yet.
Never mind. Okay, so I'll stop there. Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir. Very well done. Very eloquent, sir. All right. So, now that we got into that part, we are going to grace you with the trailer to get you guys back in the spirit of this after all our crazy talk. And so, yeah, we're going to show you the trailer, and then we'll get back into it, folks.
Give me
so
2
once
seconds.
once
Give
you
me
have
2
that
seconds,
ready,
sir.
Sir Jeff,
I've got it, sir.
Play.
I apologize. Give me 1 second. I was too busy fucking around in the private chat, talking shit to pull up the trailer. But I'll do it right now. I got it. I got it.
You're good. You're good.
I got it, baby.
I got you, Marty.
Nope, we don't want to play that one. It'd be interesting, but it would not work with Back to the Future. By the way, if it was me, like honestly, hypothetically, like just considering that, I think that when you travel in time, it's actually it makes it okay to bang your mom if you're her son. It kind of like you know, it rubs it out. It's a 50-50. It's, you know, it's okay. So I would go after it.
You talking about messing up the future, though?
Hey, you know what? I mean, what do you want me to say? Like, when you're most, I mean, with most dudes, like pussy is on the forefront of their brain so much that it's more important than anything. So, like, you know, I mean, if I was like that, you know, who gives a fuck?
That's his mom, though.
Yeah, but she looks fine as fuck in this movie. Come on, bro.
This is what you get from Jeff.
Yo, tell me you did not watch her in that movie and you were not like, damn, she's fine as fuck.
Yeah, but she was not my mom.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? She could be anybody in your mind, bro. Just imagine. Just imagine. Just imagine.
I think I imagine you having a very interesting childhood life growing up.
Oh yeah, I'd say so. Considering the fact that, like, legitimately, like, I got all my bar, like, going to the bar scene shit out of the way by the time I was 14. Yeah, I'd say that I had an interesting childhood. All right, I got it. Sorry, folks. I just have too much shit in my downloads, and it's all fucking jumbled up together. And sometimes when they title these trailers after I actually YouTube, you know, to MP4 converted them, I can't find him. Motherfuckers. I got it. Back to the Future. There we go. Woohoo! See, Andreas, I told you need to start working on some card tricks. You know, something like, you know what I'm saying, for moments like lulls when we need somebody to like provide entertainment, right? You know, you could sing, dance.
How about this? Go fuck you,
Whatever.
sir. You know.
I didn't even say anything wrong.
What are you talking about? You busted my balls about your height.
What? Oh, I said no.
Part.
Whatever. I was just joking because you were making fun. Call me 5'1". I don't care.
I'm just joking too. What?
I know.
Your catchphrase is "I know." You should put that in your shirt, Chef. I know.
So I will. Is that right at the show? First thing I'll do.
Excellent. Well, that was the trailer for you guys. It looked really awesome. Really well done. And you can hear me double echoing for you guys. You can hear me twice.
Echo on.
There we go, folks. There, we're back to normal, folks. All right, that trailer. Real simple, pretty much to the point. Really fun. And just a really classic trailer that, you know, really kind of get you back in the mood for Back to the Future, people. All right. So, moving on. All right, so Marty wakes up and he wakes up and he's like, "Mom," and he starts telling what happened, like that he's gone back in the future, he's gone back to the past and stuff like that, and that he had this weird dream and stuff like that. And you know, Lorraine is talking, and it's like, you know, it was all a dream. And she's like, "Well, you're okay back in good old 1955." And he goes, and he pops totally up. He's like, 1955, and he looks over and it's his mother, and he's like, "You're my." She's like, I'm Lorraine Baines, and you know, basically starts flirting with him, like right off the bat, and you know, basically she's like flirting with him, and he's like, notices he's in his underwear. He's like, "Where's my pants?" She's like, "Over on my hope chest," and he's like, "Oh, okay," and he's like, and she keeps calling him Calvin. He's like, at one point, he's like, "Why do you keep calling me Calvin?" He's like, "Oh, isn't that your name, Calvin Klein? It's all over your underwear." And so at that time, Calvin Klein's was not around. So, you know, basically, she keeps like trying to flirt with him, and eventually he falls out of the bed, gets his pants on, and then his mother, her mother, starts yelling up, "Lorraine!" She's like, "Oh no, it's my mother." And she gets off the bed real quick too, and he puts on his pants and stuff like that. She's like, "Here, put your pants on." And they end up going downstairs, and down at the table is all Lorraine's family members: her father, her mother, and her siblings. And in the crib, of course, is little jailbird Joey, who we see that absolutely loves the crib, and even the mother says, "We can't take him out of it. He just loves being in there." So I already let you know that he's going to be a jailbird. And she's like, and basically, Marty's grandmother's like, "I hope you like meatloaf, Marty." And they all sit down around the table and are, you know, basically kind of chit chatting. And they got Honeymooners playing on the TV set. And one of the child asks, like, is watching it, and Marty's like, "This is a good one. This is a classic. This is the one where Ralph plays as a spaceman." And the kid's like, "How do you know that?" He's like, "I saw it in a rerun." And he's like, "What's a rerun?" He's like, "You'll find out about it." He's kind of like, and he's like, "How do you know that? This is brand new." And of course, this is, you know, November of 1955, and that's when the Honeymooners was airing, and basically they're talking and stuff, and the grandmother like is that asking about is your father in the Coast Guard, because he's wearing the puppy vest, and basically we kind of have a conversation. He asks, do you know where blah 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 street is? And he's like, oh, that's a half past Maple on Main. It's like, oh, that's JFK Street, John F. Kennedy Street? And he's like, and the grandfather's like, who the hell is John F. Kennedy? Because this is 1955. Kennedy hadn't been president yet. He doesn't become president until 5 years later in 1960. And so, all these streets he's seeing have been changed because he's from 1985. And at the same time, while he's like having this conversation with his family members, Lorraine is like still trying to feel him up and stuff. He's like, and basically at one point he's like, I gotta go. And, he's like, basically, I'll see you guys a lot later. He's like, and so he ends up going over to where Doc's house is. And when we get there, we notice that his actual building of a house is still there. It's not just the garage like we were used to seeing at the beginning of the film in 1985. And so he gets there, goes to the door, knocks on it, and basically the door opens real quick and then shuts. And Marty was looking away, so he turns back and he knocks again, and all of a sudden it opens up and we see Doc, younger version of Doc, and he's got this metal thing on his head, and he's like, come in. It's like, be quiet. And so he puts this suction cup thing on his head and starts asking him questions. It's like, you're from the blah blah blah, and you're this and that and stuff like that. And eventually Marty just gets tired of it. He's like, and basically goes, he's like, I'm from the future, Doc. I came here in a time machine you built, and I need your help to get back to the year 1985. And Doc just kind of looks at him, walks over and like grabs on. He's like, you know what this means? That this damn thing doesn't work. And he walks away for a second. He's like, time machine. I haven't created a time machine. And he's like, not, and Marty's like, not yet. You do it later on in your life. And he's like, I'm serious, Doc. I really need your help. It's like, basically kind of brushing him off. He's like, I mean, look at this photo. I haven't even been born yet. Look at my license. It's like, look at this picture of my brother and sister. The class in 1984, blah, blah, blah. He's like, and Doc looks at the picture and he's like, nice photographic anomaly there. Your brother's hair is missing. And, basically like stuff like that. And basically like ends up getting, basically something happens where Doc finally starts to believe him after a whole bunch of questioning and stuff like that. Because he asks him all these different questions like, who's the president in 1985? And he's like, Ronald Reagan. And he's like, the actor? Who's the first lady? Jane Wyman? Oh no, what? Jerry Lewis is the vice president? And basically, Doc starts to grab his like all these posters and all this stuff like that, and walks away. He's like, good day to you, future boy. I don't have time to deal with this. And he goes inside and he closes the door on Marty, and Marty's at the door, and he's like, I know how you got that bruise on your head, or that cut on your head. You're basically standing there in your bathroom, putting up a light fixture. You slipped, you fell, you hit your head on the porcelain. And that's when you came up with the flux capacitor, which makes time travel possible. And then all of a sudden, Doc opens the door up again, and is like looking at him stunned, like, how did he know that? And basically he has him come back in. And so basically after he comes back in, they start talking and stuff like that. And basically he gives him, he brings in the camcorder, and stuff like that. He's so before that, after he tells him that, he basically shows him the drawing. He goes, yep, that's it. And then he brings him to take him to the DeLorean. He's stuck and hid behind that sign of the future Lion State, buildings. And so he takes it to him, and he opens it and looks inside, and so he's like, this is incredible and stuff like that. And so he basically and so like that, and enjoys it, gets into it and stuff like that. And he's like super impressed with it. So they have to get it back to the house, and so they get it back to the house, and basically they start trying to figure out how they can fix it. And so basically, we get that good portion there where basically he ends up he's watching the video, seeing how things work and like what they need to get to be able to charge the DeLorean so he can get it back to 1985. And basically at this point, he finds out that you need a gigawatt, which he ends up saying the only thing that has that power at this time, not plutonium. We don't have plutonium at this time. We don't have it in every great star, maybe like in 1985, is a bolt and lightning. And he basically has been watching it too as well, noticing certain things about him. He's like, I still have hair and all this kind of stuff. And basically at Marty ends up finding out that he has to be stuck there for a week before the clock tower incident happens. He's like, okay, that's fine. I can hang out and stuff like that. And, basically Doc's like, oh, you can't interact with anything. You can't go anywhere. You got to stay here. You can't touch anything, change anything. He's like, have you interacted with anyone else since you've been here? He's like, I might have bumped into my mom and dad. He's like, oh, let me see that picture of your brother again. And he looks at the picture and his head's missing. He's like, it's exactly what I thought would happen. You've altered their first encounter, causing your brother to start disappearing because the timeline has changed. And so he's like, basically they end up, having to fix this error that he got in between his parents having the Nightingale effect. And, basically end up, Marty has to end up going to the high school to start tracking out his dad, to get his dad to ask Lorraine out to the Chapman's Under the Sea dance. So basically, after they have constructed all this idea, they go to the school. He sees it. It's like brand new looking because it's 1955 and he's used to it looking like 1985. And he's like, this place is great. He's like, this is heavy. And they go inside. They see George. He's getting kicked in the ass because he has a sign on his back saying, kick me. And, we end up seeing Strickland again, and Marty makes the comment like, man, didn't that man ever have hair? And basically, they're there to talk to George to, basically help him, fix what Marty got in the way of. So while they're there and stuff like that, he starts to make friends with George and talk to him and stuff like that, and ask him things and all this kind of stuff, and try to, get him to like be friendly with him so he can help get ideas into his head to help him with Lorraine. And so at this point too, at this time when Doc and him are like walking around in there, Doc makes a mention about heavy. Why do you keep mentioning that word heavy? What is a gravitational pull, something wrong with it in the future or something? And like Marty's just kind of, huh? And during this encounter too as well, that's when he pops into his mother again, and she's like all worried about him, like, oh, I wasn't sure what happened to you, if you're okay and all this stuff. And she's like, isn't she a dream and stuff like that? And that's when Doc realizes that this is even worse than he thought, with the Nightingale effect. Uh-oh. I'm Iceman. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, you are.
I'm Iceman. Yeah, see, we're at an hour and 45 minutes. So what can I tell you? That just seems to be the cutoff, I swear. Anyways, so, basically that happens, and we start to have, Marty go into action. We have the great scene where they're in the cafeteria. He's trying to help George out to go talk to Lorraine, and he ends up basically encountering Beth for the first time again, and they get into a conversation in the lunchroom, and Strickland comes in and stops it. And of course, Biff says one of his great one-liners, why don't you make like a tree and get out of here? And basically we go from there. We find Marty following him and stuff like that, and telling him, you gotta be able to, I gotta help you with this, George. Lorraine really likes you and all this kind of stuff. He's like, seems to be more interested in him. And no, it's like, Lorraine really likes you and stuff like that. And so basically from there too, we basically see Marty kind of trying to get his dad to interact, help him out, and so like that. He makes, of course, the great comment at one point where he's like, Jesus, George, no, I don't even know how I was conceived. And so at one point, after he follows him home, he's like, there's nothing in this world that can get me to ask her out. And that's when he has to use the awesome, radiation suit to pretend that he's Darth Vader, an alien from another planet, to get George to ask Lorraine out. And so he does that scene, and which is absolutely hilarious. And he uses the Van Halen music.
Did we lose Cyber? Oh,
Yes,
he dropped
we did.
off.
Yeah.
He dropped off. That's no problem. He'll come right back. I'm gonna here real quick while we reset.
Well, why did he get kicked out?
Wi-Fi.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. I'm gonna play a video clip real quick and whatnot and everything just to give us a minute. Hold on.
Yeah, because I know. Oh, okay.
Hold on. I got you. This is all you got left to work with. All right. This is hard. This is an erect penis, and this is what happens if the shield gets done down with you.
Oh my god! What? Why is the comments so quiet? I need help here. Like Rayman should be here. This is fucking ridiculous. You're freaking man. We're talking about grief and loss. You're stupid.
Andreas, look! I found White Vision's penis, bro. Here it is. The whole time it's been right here. I had it right here behind my laptop.
Oh my god!
It's White Vision's penis, bro. Folks, I found it.
I cannot.
The
I'm done.
search is over.
I cannot move on. Let's move on. This is going too far. I mean, too far from already many far from Jeff TrueKnowledge himself. He be called 10. What? I think I'll give it a 5 if we want to be disturbing. And
White Vision's penis found.
um,
$2 gets a 10 out of 10 on that one. Gotta love it, baby. Who's playing Christmas music?
the ghost of Christmas past, probably.
Folks, we're waiting on Cyberneticshark. It's a little bit like a bit of a neutral period. Maybe this would be a good time to cut you loose, JJ. Did you want to dip?
I'm good. I'm still hanging with y'all.
Oh, okay. If you're good, I just wanted to check, brother. You know how I am. You know what I'm saying? I'm just cognizant of people's lives and whatnot, and everything, right? And they're stuff they got going on. I want to check in with you. But no, folks, it's always a little bit of a pause, right? When you're on the show and whatnot, right? And you've got to step in and whatnot and be the backup, and somebody else is moderating. Because in all honesty, for the most part, right up until recently, when Cybers had some Wi-Fi problems, for the most part, like when we moderate, we don't drop off, right? Like nobody ever has to step in or whatever, whatnot. If they do, it's because we get up and get food or go to the bathroom or something. But JJ, well, we have time. We're waiting for Cyber. This is a little off topic, kind of get everybody involved. What does it feel? How does it feel? I mean, you haven't been and Cyber's already back. But you could answer my question. You haven't been on any of our big shows. Where you've seen at least one of them on YouTube. But we've had 7-8 people on the panels. But how does it feel to be on the show on shows without just one person or just you?
And that feels good, man. It feels good. I always say it's better to do this, with more than one person because it makes the flow a lot easier. Being by yourself, it gets a little stallish, I must say. But no, man, I'm having a good time, man. It's good, man. Everybody bounces off of each other, That's the best part about it.
Good, man. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Thanks for coming back, Cyber. I was just asking JJ how it feels to make so much solo content and whatnot and then come on here.
Cool.
Believe me, me and Cyber know a lot about making solo content too, man. It can get a little lonely.
Yeah, definitely.
Can most definitely. All right, so where did my voice cut off?
Oh, who knows, man? Jesus Christ! I mean, when you're in Iceman mode, it's hard to really,
You were up to the diner before Biff came in.
Okay. All right. So you did hear me up to that point. All right. Awesome. Okay. So after the Darth Vader thing, George comes running up to Marty while he's standing by a gas station, and Marty's like, "Oh, I didn't see you at school today." He's like, I overslept," and he's like, Darth Vader showed up last night and told me he would melt my brain unless I asked Lorraine out to the dance. He's like, and I need your help. He's like, okay, I can help you here, George. And Marty's trying to figure out how to open the soda, and George is taking it, goes, real quickly. He's like, oh. And so he basically tells him, this is what you got to say. And George starts writing it down and stuff like that. And so then they make their way into the diner. And Lorraine's in there with some friends. And basically George comes in. He's all disheveled. Marty's helping him, like, tuck in his pants and comb his hair. And he asks the diner guy for a milkshake. And he grabs the milkshake and drinks a drink of it. And starts walking over with his little pad. And he walks up to Lorraine. And basically starts to, mouth the words and stuff like that. And basically to say that, she's his destiny, but he says something else. And as he's doing that, and she's like, oh. And all of a sudden a Biff pops up in there. He's like, McFly, I thought I told you to stay out of here. And Marty's sitting at the countertop. And basically Biff starts to walk over to get money from him for being in there. And Marty trips him. And he falls down, of course, and he gets up, and Marty's standing there, and all of a sudden Biff gets up in front of him, and he's so much taller than him, and you can kind of see in Michael J. Fox's face, kind of like, oh, this guy's big. And he's like, look, what's that? And of course Biff is so stupid to look that way, and he punches him, decks him, and it runs out. And Biff follows, and that's when we get that great skateboarding scene. And he takes the board from the kid that has it it's almost like a skateboard with like handles, like a bike or something. And he rips that off and takes the skateboard portion and starts skating around the square and stuff like that. And Biff and his goons are following him. They end up getting in the car at one point and are chasing after him. And everyone comes out from the diner is watching. And he's going around, and eventually he gets the upper hand. They got him, and he's in front of the car, and he's pushing back on it as they're driving. And Biff starts driving it towards the manure truck, and Marty all of a sudden hops up and climbs through the car and back on the skateboard. And then basically Biff ends up running into the manure truck, and we see him, and he's spitting out manure out of his mouth and stuff like that. And he's just I hate manure. And everyone looks on like, oh, that's so cool. And he's like, thanks, kid, for the skateboard. And he's like, yeah. And so all of a sudden you see Lorraine going, isn't he dreamy? And you're just like, he's basically screwing the pooch even more here with Lorraine, and basically making her want him more. And so eventually after that, he goes back to be with Doc. He walks in on him, and Doc was watching the video camera. He's like, oh, this is a very interesting unit there, Marty. And he's like, Doc, there's something I got to tell you about it. He's like, no, don't need to know. Don't need to know more about the future. And basically he ends up showing him a scale model he built of how things are going to work, transporting him back to 1985. And so he's got this full scale of the center of Hill Valley. And it's not painted or anything. It's I didn't have time to paint it. And you just see Marty going, still, you did a great job, Doc. And he has this little toy car. And he's like, so this is basically what happened. The clock will strike this. The, lightning will hit. And the lightning will basically go into the flux capacitor and will transport you back to 1985. And so he basically demonstrates, has to do it. Pretends that there's the lightning. He does the electricity thing, lights the car on fire. The car ends up falling off of the table, goes over into a little pile of rags that catches on fire, and he goes over real quickly and uses the fire extinguisher. And all of a sudden there's a knock at the door, and he goes, and Doc goes to the door and opens it, and it's none other than Lorraine. And so Lorraine comes in, and she's like, basically Marty introduces Doc as his uncle, and Lorraine's like, I, I, I really would like somebody to go with me to the Champion of the Sea dance. And Marty's kind of like, what? Oh, nobody's asked you? It's like, she's like, no. And basically ends up having to say he'll go with her and to get rid of her, basically. So after that, that's when he, goes back to see George and, is basically trying to, to tell him what exactly is going to happen and how they're going to work this, and that, basically that he's going to take Lorraine, but after a certain time, you're going to come out, you're going to punch me, and then Lorraine's going to fall in love with you and want to go to the dance with you. And so they basically make that out and stuff like that and come up with that plan. So before we go any further than that, what are your guys' thoughts on that section of the film? A lot of material there, lots of fun that happens. Just give me your overall thoughts on that section and what you enjoyed about it. We'll go with you, JJ, first this time.
That whole scene is, I think that's what I started to talk about in the beginning. And I said, wait, no, let me wait. Yeah, that right there, that's where the action started with Marty and Biff, over his mom. Marty had that type of character where it was like, okay, I may look like this small little kid that just, I'm just a rock star, but if I need to, I'll kick your ass, and that's what I like. That's what I liked about his character. He had no fear. He had no fear to team up with Doc. He had no fear to travel back in time. And that, like I said, that scene was very good because, here you have this little guy against Biff, and I think it's three or four of his friends, but he still didn't back down. And the skateboard, when I think that was the scene, I can't remember. I don't want to jump, but I think that's the one where he ripped off a part of it was like these two kids. They were like playing with, I don't even know what that was, but they had on the bottom like a skateboard but on top they had like this thing that had handles. I think this is still the same scene when he goes up to them and they're like, hey, give that back or whatever. And he's like, oh, I'll give it back. And he rips off that top part, so that right there was pretty cool. And he was able to maneuver around Biff and his little posse. That, like I said, that's my favorite part of that whole scene, and then at the end they get hit with manure, so it showed me that, the best guys always finish first and the losers finish last, so honestly, like I said, that right there was my favorite part.
Awesome. What did you think about Doc and Marty coming in contact for the first time in 1955 and him telling him about them coming up with a plan to get back to 1985 and kind of the school sequence there too, when he goes and has his another interaction with Biff, those scenes too as well. I forgot.
Those scenes were very significant too, because like I said, the whole point is for him to get back home. Obviously he goes to the future, but at the end of the day, he wants, he has to get back to, 1985. So their scenes were always spot on, him and Doc. And the school scene, I would have liked to seen Marty throw a punch, because I remember he was about to throw a punch, and I think it was the principal that kind of stopped it. I always wanted to see, because the way Marty was aiming, if the principal, which I can't remember his name, if he wouldn't have stopped him, I think he would have landed a good one, because he had the opportunity He had the clear vision. It's just like I said, the principal was a hater. I wanted to see them fight in that cafeteria. You know, again, like I said, that shows you, you know, Marty wasn't scared. He wasn't scared. You know, I'd say he was about the same height as Jeff. So it's like, hey, you know, he wasn't, you know, he wasn't scared to take on the big bad wolf. Yeah, like I said, I really wish they could have had at least a little brawl, but then maybe not, because at the same time, if they would have had a brawl, the movie would have probably went a whole different way, because again, like, you know, George McFly is the one who really saved the day. Oh, never mind. I'm going too fast. Let me stop talking.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Andres, same question, sir.
Yes. So the meaning of was it Marty and Doc is hilarious. Important. It's just one of those things of just seeing them together is really fun. It when we see Doc again as this young, bright, centric scientist or mad scientist, if we have to call him, is just so funny. I mean, with that goofy big thing that it just seems so silly, and him trying to read Marty's mind. It's just like, oh my god, this is crazy, and I just love how cool that Marty gets to the point after Doc just doesn't care, doesn't listen to oh wow, Michael J. Fox 5'4", huh? Very tall. Anyway,
Taller than Jeff.
taller than Jeff. But yes, so him stating the story that Doc told him back in 1985. That was really cool, and that was such a great payoff from that conversation he had back in 1985 to explain about this the flux capacitor. And I just love that, because then when he sees the car and sees that flux capacitor, Doc, he's so happy and joyed, because it's the first thing that worked. And you can understand at that point why Doc is so great as a character. He's just so like us. You want one thing to work, and and that's something I appreciate. Yeah, the school is funny. I mean, just seeing how Lorraine is so attached to Marty, because of the bump and all that, and so I mean, it's creepy, but it's funny at the same time. So hey, I mean, he Marty is handsome, has a great body, great mind. So so you can't blame Lorraine to get attached to this, her future son. You know, she got the hots for him. And I always love the running gag of every time Marty says heavy, and it just confuses Doc so bad. And it got to the point when he talks about why he's so heavy in 1985. It's because of the gravitonal portion is destroyed, or it's, that whole gag of heavy is so funny. And yeah, and I cannot believe it. We didn't talk about what is it? Marty pretend to be Darth Vader. That's so hilarious. I always love that, because he he does Darth Vader Star Wars. He does the Star Trek. He did the Star Trek. The Vulcan salute. And I always laugh so hard for him to combine two of the biggest sci-fi franchise into one to intimidate his father, which is great. Yeah, and I agree with JJ. The fact that he didn't punch Biff, but he already he was going to punch him in the diner, which was great. After he tricked him and punched him right there, which was wow, great. Yeah, that's one of the things about Martin. He's very different from his family. He has the confidence, which is great. Compared to his family, and you see that in that scene. He pushes his father to be brave and tell the girl of his life that he loves her. So it's really good scene to see Marty to be this tough and caring and very confident kind of person. And yeah, and his family is hilarious. I mean, Biff and his friends are hilarious. First up, we need to bring up was it Billy Zane is part of the cast? That's crazy. I was like, "No way, who he's saying is in this movie is crazy," and yeah, and I thought that was really great. And the chase scene there is hilarious. I mean, the fact that accidentally Marty created a skateboard for probably this future inventor is like hilarious, and that's another great time travel thing. Um, and last, and of course, Lane, following Marty to the house was no big surprise. The fact that the doc saw the videotape, like he doesn't know his destiny of getting killed by the terrorists. I wish that Doc actually listens to Marty because he's telling him his fate. And it always frustrates me that every time I watch this movie, it's like, come on, Doc, listen to Marty. He's telling you your fate, that it's gonna die. It's just like annoys me. Last thing we have to bring up, and this is something that's crucial, is the music by Alan Silvestri. My God, great score. I cannot believe we have to bring that up. It's a fantastic score. It's top 5 score of the 80s. I mean, it's up there with Star Wars. What's going on in the 80s? Like, Predator. Predator was like 2 years after this movie. Aliens and all of that. Like, great score from Alan Silvestri, and of course, he's gonna be a regular collaborator for Zemeckis in his films, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Forrest Gump, maybe, if I remember correctly. But yeah, great score. That's all I have to say about this sequence. They're awesome. It just moves like as this is like podcast mentioned. This is where the action really kicks in, which is good, and it's excellent.
Thank you, sir. Jeff, same question, sir. Your thoughts on from basically being introduced to Doc Brown in 1955 up till where George and Marty come up with a plan for the dance.
Basically, I can't help it. I find the whole dynamic between the especially, I mean, I like the dynamic of him with his parents in general, but especially him with his mom. It's funny as shit, man, that his mom is trying to get with him, right? Like, he's got to fight her off, and at the same time help his own father, like court his mother, right? It's fun. It's just a funny premise. It's a funny concept, right? Like, it's cool. It's funny. I'm not gonna say it's genius or something, whatever, whatnot, right? I'm just saying it's very inventive, and whatnot. So beyond that, I liked seeing, this is during the section where Biff gets knocked out, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, I like that because I felt like that showed the evolution of the film, right? Like, the characters and whatnot, everything, right? And it was about he was due to get served up.
Oh, or do you mean officially knocked out? I mean, because there are a few scenes where Marty decks him.
I'm not sure which one I'm talking. I'm thinking, is it multiple times?
Yeah, because there's we haven't gotten to the part where George knocks him out yet.
Okay, all right, I got you.
We're leading up to the dance. We're right before the dance.
All right, so I'll save that. But no, I like how the characters evolve over time. Yet at the same time, though, we have the time jump, right? As far as 1955, Doc, I thought that like Andrea said earlier, like, and you mentioned cyber, whatnot, everything, and whatnot. I thought they did a good job with the de-aging, right? It was pretty decent. And in general, I thought that Lloyd played the character well in terms of trying to add that contrast of of him being the younger version of himself, right? He wasn't as good as others maybe we've seen doing it, but what he did, it worked. There was a separation there that you could clearly, distinctly see beyond just the science stuff. I'm talking about just his personality, the way he talks, right? Like, how those things change. So I enjoy I don't know, thinking to myself and watching this movie and this part of the movie and thinking to myself like how interesting it is, how cool it is that back then this movie was like so sci-fi, like so high end, like like way out there, like in terms of like time travel films, whatever, whatnot, right? Along with all the other components it brought to the table. So it's just interesting to try to like look back and imagine if you were there, what it must have been like. Because you can't, there's no way to ever go back and know what it must have been like to see this in the theater, living in 1985 or whatever, right? In that current time, what it would be like. Maybe it would be like watching Endgame almost, right? Or some shit. Who knows? Like, I mean, maybe not like Endgame, obviously, right? But I'm just saying, like, you guys get where I'm going with this and whatnot. It's just interesting to me when I watch the films and I think about the different generations, the different decades. I think to myself how it would be really dope to be able to like just go back and experience something like back in the day, like that, like something, a concert or something, and know what it felt like to be in like 1977, right? And watch Jimi Hendrix live or go to Woodstock, right? Like seriously, and be able to understand what that vibe must have been like in that time, because there's no way to know. There's just no way. So no, basically, overall, I felt like the overall strategy and the way that the film is planned and written and structured, they did a great job without making it too complicated in terms of how they handle the time traveling throughout this part of the film, and adding the wrinkle of having the importance of having the two different versions of Doc was something that I feel like, especially at that time, was probably a very, very like new component to audiences, right? So that was probably like a big thing, Now we've seen it a couple times, so that's it, pretty much.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Fantastic people. All doing a great job. All right. So moving on. So basically we've come up to when we we're getting to the enchantment under the sea dance. Lorraine and Marty are driving in with Doc Brown's car. They get there, they park, and wonderful George is at the dance waiting his cue to want to go out to the car, knowing full well what he's going to do. And basically, Lorraine and Marty are in the car. He parks the car. She pulls out liquor, starts drinking it, and he's like, "Are you drinking?" And she's like, "Yeah, you sound like my mother," and all that kind of stuff. And he's like, "You shouldn't be doing that. You're still too young." And basically, he ends up taking a swig off of it too. And then she starts smoking. And he's like, "You're smoking too?" And just kind of like acting super awkward, as awkward can get. And basically, she like starts trying to make a move. And he's like, and he kind of starts displaying like, "Yeah, do you know what it feels like when you have to do something and you just don't know if it's gonna work out, or it's blah blah blah, etc. etc." And she's like, "I just go with it." And she leans over and kisses him. And as she kisses him, all of a sudden she leans back. She's like, "Kissing you is like kissing my brother." And Marty's like, "Yeah, oh yeah, that's not good, And then all of a sudden the side door opens. Marty's door opens and he gets pulled out. And it's not George, it's Beth. And basically pulls him out. It's like, "You caused $300 damage to my car, and I'm gonna take it out of you." And so of course his goons are there with him, and Lorraine scoots her way over to the car. Is like, and basically saying, "Leave him alone, Biff," and stuff like that. And then he's like, he looks over, he's like, "Ooh, look what we got here." And basically the goons are holding him, and then Biff's like, I'm gonna take care of some business here. He's like, we'll take care of that in a few minutes. And he gets into the car and starts pushing Lorraine into the other side and to get his way with her. And basically he's like, "This is not a peep show. Get out of here." And so he like closes the door, and then one of the guys hits Marty in the stomach to pull him to the side, and they basically take him, and they end up throwing him into the back of in a trunk of the blues guys that were there, that were performing at the dance. And after they throw him in there, close the door, all of a sudden the two guys get out of the car and like, "What are you say?" It's like, "Who you calling Pecker with Peckerhead?" And basically, like, they all get out, and they're like way taller than these guys, and they're like, "Oh, we don't want any problems with you guys, And well, if you don't get out of here, you're gonna have a problem." And he kind of like scares them, and they run off. And basically, they go over to the trucker, like, "Are you?" Is like, "Somebody in there?" Is like, "Yeah, I'm in here." And they're like, "Where's the keys?" And then Marty's like, "The keys are in here." And so then we after that, they pop back to the car where Biff and Lorraine are, and George makes his way out and goes over to it and opens the door. It's like, "Get your damn hands off her." And all of a sudden, when the person looks over, it's Biff and not Martin. And he's like, "Oh, God." And so basically, he's like, "You don't know what you're doing, McFly. Just go away," basically. And he's like, "No, Biff, you get your hands off her." And basically, Biff gets out of the car, and of course, stands up, looking really tall and stuff like that. And basically, George tries to throw a punch, and Biff grabs it and starts bending it the wrong way. And George is like, and Lorraine gets out and starts jumping onto Biff. And as his arms being held, George keeps looking, and all of a sudden sees what's going on, and basically finally gets the courage to take a stand for himself, bowls his fist, and then whacks the shit out of Biff and knocks him out. And after that, basically, Lorraine's on the ground, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And basically, he picks her up, and they start walking towards the dance. Then we go back to where Marty's in the trunk, and the one guy has a screwdriver, and he ends up getting it open, but ends up slicing his hand. And so Marty pops out and it's like, "Thanks," and starts running towards to where the car, and he gets there, and he sees that George took care of it, and that he's like, "Way to go, Dad." And he ends up looking at the picture, but still people are still his two siblings have disappeared, and he's starting to disappear. So basically, then he gets into the back to the guys, and like, "You guys got to get back in there to play. They gotta dance. They need the music so they can have their first kiss." He's like, I'm not playing, sir, unless you know somebody that can play bass." And then all of a sudden we go back in, and Marty starts playing bass for them. And he's up on stage playing bass. And as he's playing, he sees Lorraine and George out in the thing, and they're dancing together a little bit. And, all of a sudden, out of nowhere comes this guy. It's like, "Out of my way, McFly," and takes Lorraine and starts going and dancing with her. And we see George, and he's kind of depressed a little bit. He's like, "I'm still a loser." Then all of a sudden he comes back and shows him shove the guy into the floor, who is played by Courtney Gaines, who is an absolute great character actor. He was in Children of the Corn, The Burbs, really great actor. And takes Lorraine back and pulls her and starts dancing, and pulls her and kisses her. And right before that happens, we see Marty looking at his picture on his guitar, and it's showing him fade away. And he actually looks at his own hand and starts seeing it fade away, and he starts to fall down and seem like he's ill. And he's like, and the guys are like, "Are you okay, man?" He's like, I can't play." And after they kiss, all of a sudden, he gets back up and he's fine. And all of a sudden, the picture, both his brother and sister reappear, and he's all happy, and he's playing and stuff like that. And the song ends. And basically, the song ends, and then the guys are like, "Let's play another one." He's like, "Okay." And so he goes over. He's like, "I know one." And he's like, "Okay." And they're like, so he goes, like, "So this is an older song. Well, an old song from where I come from, but here it is." And all of a sudden he starts playing Chuck Berry, "Johnny Be Good." And then we get that great, awesome Johnny Be Good rendition, which sounds amazing. It's awesome. and just a great a rendition of Johnny Be Good from Chuck Berry. And of course, we have the other guys that had his hand injured. He's supposed to be the cousin of Chuck Berry, and he calls him up. He's like, "Hey, Chuck, this is your cousin Marvin Berry." He's like, "Here's the sound you've been looking for." And he like basically has him listen to his own song, which is absolutely freaking hilarious. And they're like jamming out and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, Marty, as they're singing the song, goes into his own like crazy like guitar solo. It's like something like that. Like it just cracks everyone. And everyone all of a sudden, when he's done, and they're looking and they're like kind of like, "What the hell is that kind of music?" And he goes, "Your kids are gonna love it." And basically, then he makes his way out to get to where Doc is, so that he can get back to 1985. He runs into his parents. George, of course, and Lorraine thank him, and he basically makes a small point. It's like, if you have kids, and when one of them is like blah blah years old, and he sets fire to the rug, go easy on him. And they're like, okay. And so he makes his way out, gets back to Doc. He's like, "Sorry, I'm not gonna change. I'm not gonna go back in 1995 in those monkey suit." And basically, we see Doc at somewhere through this point. We see Doc getting everything set up in the center of Hill Valley to be able to transport Marty back. And okay, now two people are gone. And so basically, he gets there, helps Doc start to uncover everything. The DeLorean, get the stick into the flux capacitor so that the electricity can go through and charge the flux capacitor so they can charge and get back to the future. And basically get everything set. Marty writes out a quick note to him telling him about, on the day I go back, you get killed. Be precaution, get the precautions done so that you can save yourself. And at one point, as they're talking before he's leaving, Doc notices the thing in his pocket and basically rips it up. And so then during that excursion, all of a sudden the storm starts to come. And unfortunately, the storm starts to knock things off. And actually, one of the pieces of electrical cord gets messed up. And so Doc's got to go up to the clock tower to fix it. And so basically, Marty goes to DeLorean, gets that ready. Doc makes it up his way up the thing to get thing. We get that great little scene where basically he's, fixing all the different things that get broken. Eventually, he gets the thing back together, stuck, and then all of a sudden, one of the other pieces falls off. He's got to slide down the cable to get to it, and basically plugs it back in just in time when the clock hits, and the clock hits the time, and then the lightning strikes, and it comes flying down. Marty at first has a little problem with the DeLorean starting, and all of a sudden it starts, and he starts making his way down the street. Eventually gets there. And as he's passing through, the lightning hits just in time, goes through the lightning rod, and transports him back to 1985. And so briefly after Marty disappears, we see Doc, and he's like kind of going, "Yay!" and stuff like that, and looks up at the sky like, "We did it!" And then it actually goes to 1985, and all of a sudden we see DeLorean pop back in, crashes into the theater that's on the main strip there. He backs it back out. He drives it a little further, gets out for a second, looks at the clock, and sees, I still got time. And because at first he made sure to take time so that he could get back before the shooting of Doc Brown so he could help save him because Doc ripping up the letter he wrote him. So he says, he gets back in. All of a sudden, the DeLorean won't start. So he starts bucking it down the road to get to Twin Pine Malls. And so he makes his way down there and gets there, and unfortunately gets there right when Doc gets shot. After, he sees what happened when he first went back to 1955. He watches himself get into the DeLorean and drive around with the things and see what happens to the Libyans. And he runs over to Doc, who's laying on the ground, and he's crying, "Oh, Doc, I wish I could have saved you." And all of a sudden, Doc blinks his eyes and sits up and is like, fine. He's like, and Marty's like, "You're okay?" And he's like, "How did you know?" And then all of a sudden, he pulls out the ripped up letter, and he actually taped it back together and read it. And all of a sudden, he pulls open his jacket and shows that he has a bulletproof vest on, and he did save his life. And basically after that, he's like, "What about that, the whole time space continuum thing?" He's like, And Doc's like, well, I figured, what the hell? And so they get into the DeLorean. They get back to the DeLorean. Doc takes them home and basically says, well, see you in about 30 years. He's like, make sure to look me up. He's like, I will. And he basically jets off and transports himself into the future from 1985. Marty goes in and goes to sleep, wakes up the next morning, goes into his living room, and all of a sudden notices how nice it looks in there. He's like, I don't recognize the place. And all of a sudden he sees his brother and sister sitting at the thing, dressed nicely and stuff like that. He's like, what are you guys doing? It's like having breakfast. He's like, I forget what his brother's name is. He's like, what are you wearing? He's like, I always wear a suit to the office, Marty. He's like, what's wrong with you? And then all of a sudden he looks over and his parents are coming in the side door and he sees them and how youthful looking they look and everything. And like, they're happy and all excited and stuff. It's like, Mom, Dad, it's like, and they're like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? It's like, he's like, Mom, you look fantastic. She's like, thank you, Marty. And they kind of, then all of a sudden they're kind of talking a little bit. And then all of a sudden George pulls out a book. And it's his novel because he wanted to always be a writer. And now he's a novelist and he's super famous. And the book cover is exactly what Marty looked like with the hazmat suit on, and which is absolutely cool. And so they're like, oh, and Lorraine's like, oh, isn't tonight the night of the beach party, Marty? And he's like, we talked about this, Mom. I can't go. The car's told. He's like, the car's told him. He's like, no, like Biff's out there working on it right now. And they go outside and he's like, Biff. And like, we see Biff and he looks older, but not as bad as he did in the beginning in 1985. And he's waxing the car. And it's like, all fine. He's like, now Biff, that's only the first coat, right? He's like, yeah, just starting on the second coat now, Mr. McFly. And then Biff comes over and it's like, you're all gassed up and ready, Marty. He's like, what? And he goes outside and he sees that he's got one of those new 4x4 fucking trucks. And you're like, what the hell? And he's like looking at it, and he all of a sudden you see the parents of the thing like, oh, like he got him this. And all of a sudden Jennifer pops up. He's like, oh, it's so good to see you. And he's like, what are you talking about, Marty? He's like, it's been a week since I've seen you. She's like, what are you talking about? Like, that was just yesterday. And he's like, no, it's been a week. And all of a sudden out of nowhere, Doc pops back up in the DeLorean, comes out, and he's like dressed in all this futuristic gear, and it's like, you guys got to get in. We got to go to the future because we got to help save your lives. It's like, what are you talking about? It's like he said, no, everything will be explained. Just get in the car. And so he grabs some trash from the trash receptacle to put into Mr. Fusion, and he's like, are you going to have enough? Don't you need to back up some more, Doc? He's like, no, where we're going, we don't need roads. And he puts the goggle things down that he has. And all of a sudden it shows the DeLorean pop up and its tires rotate and it'd be like a hovercraft. He goes flying into the future and says, to be continued. And that is the end of Back to the Future, people. All right, guys. Let's start with you, Jeff. What are your thoughts on the conclusion of Back to the Future, sir?
Well, anything hovering back then was like fucking. If I remember correctly, was like. I mean, I was really young, but like, when this came out, but watching this years after it came out as a kid, like anything like hovering, like Back to the Future 2, that hoverboard, that anything like that was like holy fuck back then, right? It was like wow, like it was the kind of shit that like now, like when you're a content creator and you see like some of the equipment that's out there and whatnot, everything, you're like, holy fuck, that's how it was with the hover shit. Anything that hovered, right, or whatever, whatnot was dope. So yeah, man, it's the ending of the film is a great way to finish a film and at the same time wrap it up, and then at the same time connect it into a sequel, right? That takes care, I think, to do that, right? You'd have to frame that correctly and whatnot, everything, and they added a good wrinkle to it, and I guess probably at the same time too, when anybody else can bounce something that they want or cyber, I guess when you're working with like subject material and concepts like this film, right? You have a lot of room to kind of play around with like different concepts and different stuff you could do, for an ending, right? To add a twist or whatever, whatnot. Like you mentioned, Cyber with that, with that ending. You could go. They probably had some different ideas, I bet, to go in that direction and whatnot. And then pick one. I'd assume out of a couple, maybe. Who knows? I don't know. But either way, it's for its time, it's very creative, right? Again, I'm not an 80s film buff, like to any degree. I watched a lot of 80s movies, but I watched them back in the day, and I'm only going to be watching them again now when we review them and shit and whatnot. So, looking back now, I was too young to grasp or be a part of the whole buzz for this film, the whole what it did to. I mean, if I understand correctly, didn't this basically catapult Michael J. Fox into essentially beyond just the Wonder Years shit and whatnot to superstardom?
What's it? I'm sorry, what?
Didn't this film sort of launch Michael J. Fox out of just the guy from the Wonder Years and whatnot that was talented into a full blown
movie star. Yeah, movie star.
He was movie star.
Yeah.
All
three of them did.
Yeah. So this launched him really, and I think that. I wish I could, maybe somebody else can. I wish I could extrapolate and be able to get into how this film affected other movies and the film industry and whatnot, everything, right? Maybe, I'm sure it did. It must have affected other films, how things were done. There must have been things that happened in the film that, were different or new concepts that became a widespread thing or maybe affected other filmmakers or whatnot. I don't know. I'm assuming that probably there were, at least in the science time travel type dynamic, or how to handle the structure of this film has, with it. I think that overall, the full film going into the end is well done and it flows well, and it never gets boring, and it continues to evolve, right? And sort of get more interesting almost, right? It keeps your attention, right? There's good secondary characters in the movie. There are, they're well acted. I think for the most part, I think they're well done, and they support the main characters well, and I think that basically, at the end of the day, the ending of the film. As I said, all I really had to say about it is basically just that I felt like it was a great ending to a good film that was handled well, and they did an excellent job of pulling off a good ending to transit along with the transition into the sequel, building up the buzz off it. And I think that's awesome. Hats off to them. Great job.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. JJ. Your thoughts, sir, on the conclusion of the film?
All right. I'm sorry. I had my other mic on mute. It was the best way to end the movie. Literally, obviously at the end, you can tell when he drove off and flew up in the sky, you could tell it was going to be a second part. But once Marty got back to 1985 and he realized, okay, he still had time, like you said, to try to see about Doc. And when he ran up to him and realized that, yeah, he saved his life, that was a key. That was a key moment right there. It was meant to be for those two to be friends. And, I like the whole spin on how the McFly family turned out. I really like that spin. His brother and sister made something of themselves. Their parents were living lavish, and Biff got what he deserved, and then, like I said, at the end, when,
Biff deserved to become an indentured servant, bro. Come on now.
Why not?
Have a heart.
No, how about no? Listen, Biff, Biff brought that all on himself. You know what I mean? And like I said, you know, he started as a teenager and he finished as an adult. And unfortunately, like I said, yeah, everyone, usually deserves second chances, but in Biff's case, he ran out of those chances. So, like I said, he got what he deserved. And it shows you pick on someone, or you think you're better than that person, and then look what happens. Now he's working for him. So I really like that, how they did that. But at the end, when Doc came back and was basically telling Marty the stuff he's seen in the future, that was, like I said, the best way to close it out. I didn't really like how they did the time machine at the end when he was throwing in the garbage. I don't know, just me personally, like I just was with the whole plutonium. Sorry, plutonium. I'm saying Patron. Oh, God, plutonium. So that's the only thing I didn't really like at the end. But then I guess it was kind of clever. But then it made sense because, again, now that I have to think about it, you're going into the future. So obviously things had changed up. So that was pretty good.
Thank you, sir. Excellent. Mr. Andres, welcome back. And your thoughts on the finale of the film?
Oh yeah. All right, let's do this. Oh yeah, finale, best movie ever. Come on, no one can judge this finale. It's one of the best. I mean, I just laughed so hard. I never realized this how Marty McFly was doing the Johnny Gooby bit. That's instant classic. I just think this sums up what I enjoy about this movie and the time travel thing. Yeah, I mean, Michael J. Fox, great actor. A lot of praise. I mean, his humor just works for this film. When he reacts to his mom, like drinking, and then her smoking, he's like shocked because in the 1950s, you think of this ideal world, which is not true. It's like it's the same. It's just different. And 1985, where it was like very, like 1985 was like Grudge and you know downbeat kind of feel to it, in the world, in reality, right? But yeah, he was funny, and then of course, I was very happy that his dad was able to build the confidence to punch Biff at the face, in the prom, dance, if you want to call it.
It really isn't that hard to push somebody in the face, just to be clear. You know what I'm saying? Like, in all honesty, guys, just, if you ever want to try it, it doesn't take that much.
Oh, I mean, it hurts when you punch a person. Just to let you know. So the fact that George McFly was able to put that force onto him.
Well, you got to do. Well, that's why you got to get that first one out of the way, time cop. You know what I'm saying? That way, when you punch more dudes afterwards and whatnot, everything, your hands get tougher.
Yeah, sure. Anyway, look, Jeff, I know you're jealous. I know you're jealous of his height, his force, his superpowers. It's nothing else we can do with Biff. Biff is a supervillain. Anyway, yeah, and you know what's funny? I rewatched this. His goons carry Michael J. Fox. I'm like, speaking of weight, how like 3 dudes can carry that small guy, Michael J. Fox, and then put him in a car? I found that very funny. Since the way they grabbed him and took him, to the back and put him in the car. I just find it funny. It's like these 3 dudes are carrying, Michael J. Fox to this, car. I just find
what would you prefer that they used a wheelbarrow?
I mean, you could just take they have his arms. You can walk. Why you need to carry him? That's just waste of energy and time. Anyway. I just find it very funny. It was like he's like, I mean, he got punch gut, from one. I think Billy Zane, right? Billy Zane's character punched him to the stomach, and I just find it funny there. But it's also funny is when, they were like interrupting the musician group that were singing in the homecoming thing. Like that was funny, and coming out in the smoke in the car, that was hilarious. I love that. And yeah, I just thought that sequence was good, and we never bring up good visual like telling to the audience that the danger of Marty's family are going to disappear. So yeah, I mean, it's going to do now. Yeah, um, disappearing in the picture is really good visual storytelling, and it was so great when he was almost like feeling ill, and like George wasn't gonna boost up his confidence when that one of the like was a ginger person like buzz into their dance. We saw that character the one time he was the one kid that was bugging him in the hallway when we got introduced those two when Doc and Marty were playing their plan how to get them together. We saw that one character, that ginger, in that school, which was a very cool payoff. So yeah, and then after that, you got the Johnny Be Good. That was very funny. I find it very convenient that was it Chuck Berry's like cousin is one of the bands, and he finds this like very tune. So that was all clever. And then after that, you got the clock scene, very iconic. I always get upset when Doc finds the envelope and the note about his his situation back in 1985, and of course we get to the end. He say like, well, damn the future, and he finds out. But at that moment, I was like, oh come on, why you have to rip up the envelope? But it's a good dramatic piece, and the action there is really great. I mean, for a small movie, this is a small movie. The fact that it has little special effects, compared to the sequels we'll get into later in the year, this, the effects by, Industrial Light and Magic is really great and timeless. I just like the way that, the car does time travel, and it's like very simple but very powerful image to remember this movie, and I think I really enjoyed that. Yeah, and then after we get after after Doc finds the envelope, I agree with JJ that this the relation of Doc and Marty is definitely the importance of the trilogy, and so them hugging in this before they were going to leave, it's very powerful. I really enjoy that because as I brought up, it's like this very like father and son kind of relationship, but slash friendship simultaneously, and like you totally get it, especially with the whole film. And so I always get a little teary eye seeing them hug, before they go their separate ways in time. But yeah, so yes, this is a little warm heart for me. Then after that, we get this, in and out of like complication. They got the wires being tugged out with the tree, and it's like Doc needs to go up again and try to connect it again. And then, the car, Marty has to start the car, and then it's like it's stopped doing the engine, and then it's like he's fanning the car to start again. And like that is so like heart pumping. And then, of course, when the car starts, he's able to do the 22-mile run, whatever, and like he goes back to his past. And then, of course, after that, he sees the events of the beginning of the film, and then, excuse me, and then he sees Doc getting shot, and then voila, after he cries a little bit, he sees Doc coming out from the ground. He should be scared. Like when he wakes up, it's almost like a Frankenstein monster. Like he should be like, oh my god, you're a zombie. Come on, he should have seen like was it Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead at that point. He should know that that's a zombie. But whatever, it's not horror. He'll never. God, thanks a lot, Jeff. I know you're saying this anyway. Obviously we got the he read the envelope, and I was so happy he ignored his future talk of not knowing the future of of his destiny and all that. So it was great. And then and The one nitpick, I don't know if you guys discussed this. Yeah, the one nitpick I will have with the ending, the finale, is like, I mean, it's always gonna be trouble with time travel movies. Yeah, the fact that the parents never recognize Marty is always a weird thing. You know,
If he's not born yet, how is that even possible?
well, yeah,
I mean, is this like some shit where a cyber's my son shit or whatever or whatnot? Come on.
I mean, if look, if
JJ, when we went to Rockville Daytona Beach, the hotel guy thought for some reason kept referring to Cyber as my son to me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Before he came up, he showed up, whatnot, and everything. He's like, when are you going to pick up your son? I'm like, bro, I told you 3 times. He's not my fucking son. He's older than me, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I didn't say it like that, but I was like, bro, that makes no sense. He's older than me, bro. Like, how is that possible? I'm like, when you see him, you're gonna be like, what? Like that? It's obviously not my son. Like, are you need glasses or something?
Yeah, it should be the opposite. It should be Jeff is the son of Cyber. Like, you know,
this hotel was so fucking ganked up looking and whatnot, everything. Oh god, I should have taken a couple good pictures of it, whatnot, just to keep around. I should have. That motherfucker was like ghetto as fuck, bro.
It was good for all the hoes.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Anyway, you know, I'm just asking, like if you got birth to your kid and you see him now, it's like, wait a minute, you look like that awesome retro cool kid in your high school that was there for a week. Like, should you remember him? You know, and like he's the one that gave you the name Marty, and you named this other kid that looked like similar to you.
Again, if you're not a tangible human being that's born yet,
yeah,
that concept does not play.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just a minor nitpick, you know. It's always, you know, what else you can do? But for that, this movie is a perfect time travel movie, and I'm happy they're well adjusted. I'm happy for George writing his awesome novel. It's great. I love that Biff is a loser, which is great. You know, no offense, Biff, but you're a super villain. I agree with This Is Life podcast that he deserved what he deserved. You know, be this low life. He should be in the control by George. I always love when he say, I'm doing the second round, and it's like, and then I think George say like, Biff, and like he does like similar to George, like what?
We're almost at 3 hours. Shut up.
Wrap up, 60-minute man.
Oh, 60-minute. Anyway, all right, that's all I had to say. Yeah, the sequel setup was funny. Because he went to the future, he changed the battery for the time machine, which is great. He's using like reusable source to like generate the gigawatts, which is great because it was stupid to use like plutonium for the time machine. So I really dug that he switched the way how to generate the gigawatts. So I really dug that. That was like he was saving power, which is great. And come on, I always get excited for when you say roads. We don't need roads, and bam, movie ends. That's it. My 60-minute is over because we wanted to get out of here. So thank you everyone for joining the 60-minute man show.
Oh shit! I took over the whole show.
Oh Jesus Christ!
Holy
Help
fuck,
us!
man.
Help us!
This
Help
is crazy, bro. JJ, first he just tells me, right, like on a show that like now he's a fucking full-fledged member of the team and whatnot. I didn't even ask for it. He's like, I am. He's like, just so you know, folks, I'm now with the Bleeding Edge and all this shit. I'm like, oh, thanks for letting me know that, Andres. I appreciate that. Now he's the show.
They're jealous. They're jealous of my handsome intellect and knowledge.
No, I admire you, sir. I mean, you went from taking like a funny tag 60-minute man that was actually like making fun of you, joking about like how long you talk, turned into like taking over the show.
Yeah,
I give you props.
Yeah, and then making my character into a time cop / time lord is hilarious, which our guest doesn't understand our long dramatic storyline that we created the shows.
Okay, wow. I'm not in Inception, thank God. Okay.
We'll talk about another time on the show, whatever, whatnot, everything. But if you really want to pull off this time cop, time war shit, at some point you need to start adding some costumes to that shit.
Okay.
True. True that. All right, people. Let's do our wonderful ratings, and then our plugs. We'll get out of here. All right. So Andres, short and sweet to the point. What is your rating, sir?
10 out of 10. That's it. Ciao.
Excellent. JJ, what would you give it, sir? 1 out of 10. Oh, you're muted, sir.
Am I back on?
There you go.
Okay, that's simple. 10.
Awesome. Thank you, JJ. Jeff, what would you give it, sir?
JJ, first, what do you want me to pull up for you for your plugs? Is there a specific platform you want me to pull up or anything or whatnot?
What, for my show?
For your plugs, yeah.
Okay, let me see. In terms of where to find,
just send me a link in the private chat.
Okay, got you.
Okay. My rating, I'll give the film a solid 9. It has some holes, not many. There are very few, but there are some holes. And I don't get me wrong. I said the secondary characters were pretty solid, but like they also weren't perfect. You know what I'm saying? Like they had their dull moments too. You know what I mean? Where they weren't exactly like Fluxy either. And then again, too, there's 2 other films. So, that's why I'm going to give it a 9, right? Because if I remember correctly from watching the films before in the past, I liked two but more than 1. Does that make sense? So at that point, like, I remember it being a better film. Yeah. So I don't think it hurts. I don't think there's anything wrong with rating and like adding in, sequels and whatnot, and all that. I'm going to give it a 9, but it's a strong 9. It's a great film. And, it's a film that I think probably you had to have like literally be there in that time to really appreciate it for what it was.
Very good. And just to clarify that for you people, those holes Jeff would fuck. Just to let you know, he would definitely go and fuck those holes.
Which holes?
The holes you were just talking about.
Oh, in the plot in the movie. Yeah, I mean, well, it would depend. I like to be inclusive and whatnot, everything, right? So the holes would have to be multicolored and, not all white at all because we can't be having that. Right?
One,
yeah.
Anyways, I give it a solid 10 as well. Simply the fact that it entertained me, like I always say, if the film entertains me, it keeps me entertained. I don't care if there's plot points that are missed. I don't care if the acting is that horrible. As long as it entertains me, I enjoy it and I give it a 10. Because I think that film is not supposed to be so speculative and so, pulled apart and stuff like that. I think that film, it was meant to entertain people. When they first started creating film back in the late 1800s, it was meant to entertain, like a play or like a music event, stuff like that. It wasn't meant to be this like dissected 3,000 ways to one because they didn't get this right or they didn't do it this way, So I give, if I give it a 10, that means I was entertained and enjoyed it. And I enjoyed this film. It's a fun film. All the actors are amazing in it. And overall, it's a decent film. And yeah, it did start to put things into perspective for sci-fi. This film really did. It really pushed that envelope for the sci-fi world, really bringing us to a more sci-fi, around this time because, Aliens had just come out back in 79. There wasn't a whole bunch of sci-fi films that were super huge, and Alien was kind of like the last big one until like the mid 80s. And so I think that this film kind of catalyzed that people wanted that kind of stuff.
Cyber, real quick, was this film the first sci-fi film that really caught on and people watched that added influences like comedy and all this kind of stuff and whatnot and everything into a sci-fi film?
I would say so, yes, because we really hadn't seen that before. Because if you think about it, only a couple years later, we got Spaceballs, which used sci-fi and comedy together.
Spaceballs, holy shit!
And a lot of those films, even Predator, if you think about it, had a few kind of one-liners that were kind of comedic. Any of those films. So I mean, yeah, Back to the Future really did set a precedent for its time in '85. But I think one of the biggest things about this film too, before we get out of here and do our plugs, is that the fact that the prosthetics in this film was one of the things that really pushed prosthetics forward was this movie, because they used it to age the younger actors for the 1985 stuff. Yeah, for them being supposedly younger in 1955. So when we go back to 1955, all the actors look like their normal age in 1985. So those prosthetics in 1985 were considered a advancement in their time for 1985, even though we look back at it, 30 plus years later and look at it and go, "Ooh, that looked horrible." No, for its time, it was inventive. And actually, a lot of people based how they did their prosthetics in future films for this movie. So that was a pioneer in prosthetics for a lot of films. All right, plugs, please, sir. I'll let you take it away.
I got it, sir. We're going to go ahead and start with JJ so we can cut him out first, get Cyber out, and then we'll do Andre's last. Okay, JJ, let's go ahead and get started, sir. You want to take over and whatnot and tell us about the This Is Life podcast?
All right. So basically, my show, This Is the Life podcast, is literally just about life. Everyday things, everyday struggles, things people go through. I also throw in, a little bit of celebrity, talk, things that happen, because I'm here in Miami. I talk about things that happen, obviously here home. I talk about stuff that happen national, around the world as well. My biggest thing is things that people may or may not want to hear. I talk about it. Why? Because it's life. So that's basically what my show is about. I fell off a little bit this year, just ran into some brain farts and just all type of stuff. But I'm trying to get back on the grind. First of the year. I had dropped 2 episodes not this week, last week and the week before. I dropped 2 new episodes. I also have my older episodes when I first started. So just check me out, people. Like I said, like I always tell Jeff, I still feel new in the game, but I'm enjoying it, so I just want to just be versatile with everybody, so just go ahead and just give me a check when you can, guys.
Hey, man, I'm telling you right now, as soon as we actually have checks that we can give and whatnot, everything, bro, you'll get one of the first 10. I promise.
Appreciate it. Okay.
Right? I promise. Thank you, JJ. Hey, thanks for sticking around and wanting to just kick it with us and have fun, man, and do the review.
Yeah, it's been good, man. It's been good. I appreciate y'all, man. Thank you.
Hey, I'm glad you had a great time, man. I'm glad. It's the best compliment you could possibly have.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna switch. No, looking forward to it, bro. Listen, let's talk. Definitely. Hit me up. Don't be a stranger, man. Hit me up and whatnot. We got to talk about that, finishing that segment on your show.
I know we do. We do.
And like I said in the private chat, there's some stuff we got going on and whatnot I wanted to let you know about.
Okay, definitely.
All right. Thank you very much, JJ. Peace out, brother.
Great having you.
Take care, y'all.
Great job, by the way, also. All right. Mr. Cyberneticshark, sir.
All right, of course, if you enjoy me here as a moderator or on the panel, people, definitely check out my Cyberneticshark YouTube channel or any of my other social media platforms where I do solo content. Most recently, I put up a few great reviews for you guys, a trailer reaction and a couple mini reviews. Today, I believe I did one for, what did I do? To All a Good Night, which is a horror Christmas film that came out in 1980. Absolutely freaking hilarious. Definitely worth a watch if you get to check it out. It's on Shudder. Worth the watch, most definitely. Really like bad acting, but just all over, just fun film. And as always, people, if you enjoy my content, definitely hit that subscribe button. Help me and Andreas get to that magic 1,000 marks, people. Last time I looked, I was still at 714. So yeah, I went up a couple.
Excellent, Soul. Excellent. That is good. Let me stop sharing real quick. Switch over to Andres, the pop culture guy. I still have not seen Godzilla X yet.
You mean Godzilla -1?
Godzilla -1. I think this weekend I'm going to go. Tomorrow, probably, or Sunday. There we go. Andreas.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andreas Diaz, pop culture guy. Yeah, this is my channel, Andreas Pop Culture Guy Channel Presents. Up to 855 subscribers. Uh, should be 506 now, maybe. I should be there, but let's see. But anyway, but yeah, up there I already did a Lost Translation 20th anniversary. I think it's blocked and maybe need to change some songs. But yeah, this Sunday I'm gonna have a live stream review on Her, the Spike Jones film, starring Joaquin Phoenix. Me and Jeff will be doing that on Sunday. Check us on that. But yeah, that's where I'm at. So thank you everyone. And just as Cyber said before, help me and him reach that 100 mark so we can be successful. So thank you everyone from the MCU Bleeding Edge community. And I hope you guys enjoy this wonderful 3 hour of Back to the Future.
I'm sure they will, folks. All right, folks, we're out of here. Peace. We love you. We'll see you next week. Be good. Have a great weekend. Thank you very much, JJ. Thank you, Andre.
Just
Thank
remind
you,
people.
Shark.
Remind people what we're doing next week.
Monday, we are doing WandaVision episode 8 before we wrap up with the finale. I'm not sure what we're going to cover yet on our pop culture, current news, kind of like other segment of the show yet, but we'll figure that out. Wednesday, Cyber moderates part 2 of Avengers Endgame review. Our second to last film of our Infinity Saga review with Spider-Man 2 to close out the year on our last Wednesday night of December. We have a big year in 2024. I'm working on our schedule right now. We have a big year. We have a lot of good shit to cover. And we don't even know yet what all is totally coming out yet. So there's going to be stuff that we're going to cover that I have no idea yet. We're going to figure out as we go. We've got some holes we have to fill. Friday, now Cyber, I'm going to admit unprofessionality here. I cannot find the damn piece of paper or the fucking notebook I had the night when we were writing and figuring out what movies to pick for the end of the year. I cannot remember for the life of me. It doesn't matter what that last film was that I picked.
No, because What If starts next Friday.
Is it next Friday?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So there was no room for one more.
No.
Okay, so folks, next Friday
episode 1 and 2.
Will they both be out?
Yes.
Oh, they will. Okay. See, I thought for a minute there we were going to have to do episode 1 first, right, and then close out with a double piece. Okay, so that way we'll be able to close out with a single episode.
Yep.
That's great. Excellent. Folks, What If Season 2, and honestly, JJ, if you're still there, this is actually something that I was going to talk to you about on the phone anyway, just so you know, was asking you about if you wanted to come on and whatnot and everything and bang with us on What If Season 2 that's coming out. It's going to be five episodes. We'll be doing 5 shows on it to cover the 9 episodes.
Yep.
And it's animated. You don't have to be a pure MCU fan to follow it, folks in the audience. You don't have to have watched all the films, whatnot, everything to get into What If. It's literally what if. What if a hypothetical thing happens that's not even actually canon or anything? So, literally, you don't have to know all the shit. You can come in, you can review the episodes and whatnot, everything. It's all animated. We're going to do them short form. We're going to double them up, except for the finale. We're going to be doing 2-episode reviews, so they'll probably be an hour apiece. And then when we wrap that up, I believe, or right towards the end of What If, we'll get Echo in January. So, and we don't have time right now, but we'll talk about it later on. We now know that we have some interesting stuff to cover for Marvel next year. It's going to be fun. We got X-Men 97. It's definitely coming out in the spring. And Andres and I, and hopefully we'll be able to get Cyber to come over. Maybe JJ will come over. I'm sure we'll be able to get people to come over to fuck with us on this. Andres and I, starting the year on Mondays in the Bleeding Edge Report, are going to start reviewing 2 episodes at a time. X-Men animated series, original X-Men animated series from season 1, episode 1.
Yeah.
Dope as shit.
5 seasons of it.
Can't wait, baby. Can't wait. There's 5 seasons? Damn. I don't know, man. We have to do the math on that. And we have to do 3 episodes per review. We'll have to see how it works. But that's what we got going, folks. we're gonna lay out our movie schedule for next year. We're gonna lay it all out for the whole year, so it's all set. At some point, I believe, Cyber, we're gonna have time next year to be able to get DC animated in again too, right? I'm sure.
Yep.
We should be able to, right? And there's gonna be DC stuff actually out to cover next year too.
Yep.
And we got Aquaman coming out.
That comes out next Friday.
That's right. And I'm sure at some point, in some way, at some juncture, we're gonna want to review it. So you know, we're all gonna go see it. I know that. Again, folks, come watch us. Come watch us do Endgame Part 2. Should be a great show next Wednesday at 9:35 p.m. Eastern, 6:35 p.m. Pacific. Cyber's moderating. We're gonna have a great panel, right? It'll probably be a long show, but I mean, hey, no, okay. Cyber says no. My show was long. You know, there you go. But no, we're gonna get to talk about the best part of Endgame, the final battle and shit, and whatnot. It's gonna be fucking awesome. So you know, people are gonna be crying and shit inside, crying outside. This would be intense. No? Okay. Anyways, folks, that's just a little humor there. But we'll see you later. We love you. Peace.
Really, y'all don't know this